It is the day that we mark the 10-year anniversary of the death of Prince. It was on this day, April the 21st, back in 2016, that Prince was found dead at his home in Minnesota at the age of just 57. I don't think I need to tell you how large a presence Prince was in music and beyond, quite frankly. An absolute superstar globally through the 1980s. That song there, When Doves Cry, one of many number ones for Prince. It went to number one in July of 1984. Prince recorded more than 30 albums in his all too short lifetime. It was on this day in 2016, 10 years ago, that Prince was found dead at the age of 57. So we mark that somber anniversary with one of his best, in my opinion. I mean, my goodness gracious, how many could we have chosen from? Maybe we should have an all Prince Friday this week. You know what? Do you want to do that? Do you want to just do an all request Prince Day on Friday just to show? Like I said, I could have picked so many. I was thinking of doing singing actors, but you know what? I think, how about it? 10 years after Prince's passing, how about an all Prince, all request Friday this week? It's a decision made in the moment, spontaneously. This is a stream of consciousness show. I stamped it, no erases. There you go. All request Friday this week in honor of the man we lost 10 years ago today. It's going to be all Prince all the time. Now, here's what's going to be interesting about our All Request Friday. Will you be able to come up with 12 or no, we have room for 14 songs on the show. How many of you will request the same Prince song again and again and again? We're going to find out. All Request Friday, I just decided right now, it's going to be an All Prince Friday on the show. Okay? Okay, great. Glad we agree on that. Thanks for playing along. You can send your requests in by email to me, Mike at 570news.com, or when you call in to talk about issues on the show, or you just want to call in and say, hi, Jen, here's the song I would like to request. You can do that too. Phone lines open the minute we begin the show every day at 519-570-2545, star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. We're going all Prince this Friday, and we're going to our phones early this Tuesday morning. Doug is with us. Good morning, Doug.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, Doug.
See, you got the picture I sent.
Yes. So we were giving Doug a hard time last week because, I mean, the Bluetooth setup, whatever you got going there, Doug, hasn't been the greatest, but apparently you have tried to improve your Bluetooth setup.
Well, you know, between my wife and I, sometimes it's blind leading the blind technically, but I think we got it right this time. It's an upgrade. It's an upgrade from the same company from what we had, and anyway, it seems to be working rather well. It's just unfortunately it took forever to link it to my phone. We kept pushing the wrong button apparently. That's what it'll do to you. Anyway, you already played my favorite Prince song, but we'll think of something real quick. And I'm looking forward to Friday. You know that. I
know you are, Doug. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right, you too. Doug's going to think of a Prince song. Sandy already sent in her request, Let's Go Crazy. So that's one off the list now. What other Prince songs are we going to play? There are so many to choose from. All Request Friday, the Prince edition. A couple of things I wanted to share with you as we get underway today. Number one is, it's not the Farwell Show 5 yet, but these things came across my plate, and I wanted to make sure I shared them because one of them just makes me chuckle. This is it. This is the last week for leaf collection in the city of Cambridge. That's right. It's sort of spring. It's not spring. Yesterday, here's how not spring it is, okay? Yesterday afternoon, Rosie the pandemic pup and I left the house for our afternoon walk. We got down to the corner and I turned around And I came back home and I grabbed my toque and I grabbed my gloves and I said some words that I won't repeat here on the radio, but I told my beloved, it is really cold out there. And so I went full winter gear for our walk yesterday afternoon. What is going on? Despite the fact that we're in false spring, we are certainly not in autumn or fall. You remember when we got the early snow, November the 9th, the snow came well before any of our cities could finish with the cleanup of the leaves at the side of the road. So Cambridge has restarted the process because this is just funny. It's just funny. Like, we should not do this anyway, period, full stop. We need to stop with the curbside leaf collection. But Cambridge, God bless them, got out there and started trying again and to clean up what was left behind under all that snow. But this is it now. Like, if they're not done by this Friday, you got to clean them up and bag them yourself. Like we should be doing anyway. This service chafes my chaps. But nonetheless, if you want to take advantage of it, this is it. Cambridge says as of the 24th, which is this Friday, no more curbside leaf collection. The other thing that I couldn't help but notice is it's coming east, baby. And I'm here for it. Like, can we just finally adopt this here? It started in British Columbia, where Premier David Eby said, that's it. We're staying on daylight saving time for the rest of time. There will be no more changing of the clocks. And what did we hear yesterday from Premier Danielle Smith in Alberta? Boom! We're staying on daylight saving time. No more changing the clocks. I don't give a tinker's darn which time you decide to stay on. Let's just stay on one time. The changing of the clocks is ridiculous. It's 2026. Enough already. So BC has made the change. Alberta says it's going to make the change. Saskatchewan never fell into the trap. They'd stay on the same time all the time anyway, right? Pretty sure. So then we got Manitoba. Well, come on, Wob Canoe. And then let's go. Premier Ford, you're selling your plane? Let's make the announcement that the time will remain the time now and forever in the province of Ontario. Please, no more with the time change. It's moving east, baby. And I want Ontario to adopt it. Just ahead of our Farwell Show 5 this morning. Let's get back to the phones. Tony is with us. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing real well. How are you?
Oh, excellent. I think your idea for Friday is excellent.
Oh, good.
As a former club DJ in the 90s, my Stairway to Heaven was my signature song at the end of the night. I always played Purple Rain because it was almost an 8-minute song. And I don't think that people truly realize, I mean, if you can get past the pumps and the lace, how talented he truly was. He is truly an icon that unfortunately has gone way too soon. But my song is Purple Rain. If you can do that, much appreciated.
Consider it done, Tony. Thanks for the call, bud.
Thank you, brother.
Really appreciate that. And, you know, I have to admit, I'm a long-time rock and roller, right? I'm still stuck in the 1970s, and I've always kind of hung out there. The 80s had their time, and that's when I was really coming of age, teenager, buying my music, etc. But I never really took to Prince for the reasons that Tony points out. The image, it didn't suit me. It wasn't. I was rather dismissive, but I have certainly learned over time the musicianship, the talent, without question. And yeah, I'm glad Tony agrees, because it was an on-the-spot, spontaneous decision this morning. I was thinking of something else for All Request Friday, but in just thinking on 10 years since the passing of Prince, why not have an all Prince, All Request Friday this Friday? So Tony is down for Purple Rain. Sandy is in for Let's Go Crazy. How about Party Man from the Batman soundtrack? That's what Reed is asking for. Jungle Love. Prince wrote the song, and it was in the movie Purple Rain. All right. We can make that work. Prince songs that were hits for other artists. All right. We'll work it in there, Andrea. See, this is how it goes. We're up to 4 already. We need to fill 14 spots with Prince songs for Friday, and we'll see what we can do. All Request Friday, all Prince, all the time.
1, 2.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning, the 21st of April. Number one Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, says she's in touch with the Canadian embassy after yesterday's deadly shooting northeast of Mexico City that left a Canadian dead and another injured. She is also promising an investigation into the incident at the site of the pyramids, where videos and photos from local news outlets show a gunman standing atop one of the tourist attractions while dozens of tourists ducked for cover. Number two, discussions about raises for city councillors have moved now to Kitchener, where elected officials are in line for a 10% pay hike. Ward 6 councillor Paul Singh acknowledged the difficulty with the process.
I was on the fence on this one. I share some of the concern and apprehension, and some members who are outlining that it's not fair for us to decide our own pay.
The proposed increase did pass 9-2, with only councillors Debbie Chapman and Christine Michaud opposed. Number three on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, police CCTV cameras are moving forward in Kitchener. Council voting yesterday to continue working with WRPS to have the cameras installed starting in downtown Kitchener and near Fairview Park Mall. Waterloo is the only other municipality to so far support the installation of the cameras. You'll probably recall Wilmot said back in the fall, not yet. We're not quite ready for this. Number four, Waterloo is urging the province to introduce a deposit program for non-alcoholic beverage containers. Ward 7 councillor Julie Wright brought forward the motion at council yesterday.
It's estimated that about 1 billion bottles each year end up in landfills and the environment. And this is a particularly egregious issue for the province of Ontario. In comparison, Canadian provinces and territories that have a deposit return program are able to recycle over 3/4 of their bottles, and even higher than that. The Great Lakes are really suffering from an enormous amount of waste. It's just proliferating across the lakes, and there's 40 million people that rely on the Great Lakes for drinking water.
Again, that is Councillor Julie Wright in Waterloo. I've long wondered why we don't have some sort of deposit return program here. Could it be something that we could add to the list of duties for our beer stores, which continue to collect alcohol empties? I don't know what this looks like. Really, it's not a municipal job, but hey, we can request that the province take some action on this. It's been requested before. There's more and more talk about it. And Waterloo Councillor Julie Wright brought that motion forward yesterday, which was endorsed by council. And number five, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, just so you know. I mean, yes, there's business at council. They're talking pay raises. They're talking CCTV cameras. They're talking a deposit system for non-alcoholic beverages. But our elected representatives are in tune with what's going on in the community. And in Waterloo yesterday, Ward 3's Hans Roach wanted to make sure we were all paying attention to something else.
Just wanted to acknowledge that the Waterloo Wolves U18 AAA team won the Ontario Championships, and now they're representing Waterloo in the National Championship. And currently in the second period, they're ahead of Halifax 2-1.
That's awesome. It's always good to hear a good update like that. And of course, we can't help but celebrate how well the Rangers are playing this year, too.
Even in Waterloo, they're talking about the Kitchener Rangers. That was Ward 4's Councillor Diane Freeman. The Rangers open their Western Conference final series against the Windsor Spitfires on Friday night. But going back to what Councillor Roach was talking about, those U18 AAA Waterloo Wolves in that national championship, representing our community, representing all of Ontario. Tournament happening in Peterborough right now. It was 2-1 when Councillor Roach gave that update yesterday. Halifax would come back to tie the game in the third period, but Eli Humphrey of your Waterloo Wolves, 42 seconds into overtime, and the Wolves win. The Wolves win 3-2 over Halifax yesterday, the OT finish. Waterloo will take on Quebec today. And speaking of today, don't forget, your KW Titans have the chance to close out the Basketball Super League Championship with a win tonight on the road in Sudbury. The Titans lead that best-of-5 series 2-0.
A Monday warrior your mean, mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
So I've been doing the math. Okay, there is so much for us to talk about today, but I want to come back to the raise that Kitchener councillors will be getting in the next term of council. So it's a bit of a nit to pick here, but it's not as though councillors are voting for their own increases, except that councillors usually get reelected because incumbency is a huge advantage, particularly at the municipal level. So while technically they are not voting for their own raises, they are voting for their raises if they are successful in being reelected. So, yeah. But anyway, that's just splitting hairs a little bit here. I don't mean to be the I told you so guy, but remember when this first came up and Waterloo Council was one of the first out of the gates and the whopping increases that were approved there. And here's the thing. It is a municipal council ladder. That's what happens here. So when Waterloo came out first and had these conversations, what the reports that suggest the increases are based on is comparable pay in comparable municipalities. So they'll look at Barrie, they'll look at Niagara, whatever they're looking at, and they say, well, here's what the pay is here, so we should be in line with those. But then you see, and I remember, I'm telling you, when Waterloo voted for their increase in the next term of council, it brought them up to, I think, a shade more than what Kitchener was making. And why would a community of 160-odd thousand have pay for councillors that's higher than a community of about 300,000? Like, how does that make sense? So you knew what was going to happen, and it now happens, right? Kitchener steps up that ladder over top of Waterloo, and now the next time another municipality is considering increases for councillors, they're going to look at Kitchener and say, well, Kitchener's making this, right? It's really tough. And I have a ton of sympathy for folks who are stuck in a situation discussing their own essential salaries. And basically, whether it comes from a third-party report or not, these individuals have the opportunity to vote in support of their own increase. And listen, I think people should be paid appropriately for the job that they do. But most of us have to make our case to our management team. Hey, I think I deserve this, that, or the other thing. Councillors don't have to make a case to anybody else. They just say, I think people should be paid appropriately, and this is appropriate. The thing where it breaks down for me is these increases, appropriate or otherwise, are coming out of our pockets. And as you'll hear in this clip I'm about to play you, our pockets are having less and less in them. Here's what City of Kitchener Ward 9 Councillor Debbie Chapman had to say during the discussion of councillor pay increases yesterday.
So I have great difficulty with all of this. I've never worked a job, and I've worked many different jobs where I actually sit down and decide what my pay raise is going to be. So I'm sorry, but I can't support any of this. I feel I've got a huge conflict of interest. As was mentioned, people are struggling, to pay for the gas in their cars, food on their table, rents, which are off the charts. And to think that we would be giving ourselves a 10.3% wage increase, which again, for me, I've never seen a wage increase of that magnitude in any job that I've ever worked in. I'm sorry, but I can't support this. And I realize that, we get our annual increase, and I wish somebody could tell me what that is, how much, when it was, and how much we got, and maybe over the past 4 or 5 years, what that looked like, because it's not like we're not getting increases. Some people get no increases year to year. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to support this.
Councillor Chapman, along with Councillor Christine Michaud, the only 2 councillors in Kitchener who voted against the increase. And that, to me, really strikes at the heart of this. You have your job, you get your annual increase, But now you're saying the base level for that job should be 10% higher, and then you'll continue to get your annual increases on top of that. Just raise your hand right now if you had a 10% adjustment to your salary in the past 4 years. It's tough. I love the idea of a rising tide raising all boats, but that's not what happens in reality. So what happens in reality now is schmucks like you and me who don't get 10% increases or maybe get 0% increases are going to be paying more to have people operate or manage our local government. Again, I think people should be paid appropriately for jobs. I can't argue with that side of it, but it gets tough. And I think Councillor Chapman expresses how tough it gets. If you've got any thoughts on this, your morning wake-up call is coming up. It's the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Russell sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. No pay increase since 2019. So there you go. You're just happy to have the job, right? And yet, every year as costs increase, you fall further behind in real terms. And that's what Councillor Chapman was alluding to when Kitchener Council voted in favor of a 10% pay hike for the next term of council. Let's go to the phones, hear from Jesse on this. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Just on the topic of these municipal pay raises, Cambridge went through one recently as well, had a vote. And didn't Waterloo have one also earlier this year?
Yeah, it's kind of that time of year. They do this at the end of a term. So I think Waterloo was first out of the gates. Guelph did one, Cambridge, Wilmot. Yeah, it just happens across the board.
Yeah.
Woolwich, yeah.
I just hope everybody in the region uses this as a litmus test for the upcoming election. Because Councillor Chapman seems to know her constituents.
Yeah, so what you're suggesting is, perhaps for you, if somebody voted in favor of the 10% increase, you might be less likely to vote for them come October.
Oh, yes, absolutely, especially with everything going on in this region after the winter that we've had and everything. Absolutely.
Jesse, appreciate the call, and that's a fair point. Again, it was a 9-2 vote. Only Councillors Chapman and Michaud voted against the increase. So if that's the kind of fiscal hawk you're looking for, then you'll want to keep that in mind when October rolls around. It was a 9-2 vote, even though we have, 9, yeah, that's right. 9-2. Yeah, but not voting. Councillor Owaduni wasn't at council last night, so it should have been maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it was 8-2 because we have 10 councillors and a mayor. Regardless, I know it was councillors Chapman and Michaud were the only two that voted against. So to Jesse's point, maybe that's your litmus test for the upcoming municipal election. All right, I got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then let's talk about a region of Waterloo housing corporation. A what? We'll find out next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. A local councillor is floating the idea of creating a local housing corporation. A what? And a why? Well, that's why we have conversations like this on the show, so we can learn more. The councillor floating the idea is Regional Councillor Joe Gowing, who represents Kitchener and joins us on the show this morning. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good. It was nice to see you last week at the State of the Township address. I'm sorry we didn't get more of a chance to talk then.
Oh, that's okay. I was booked right after, so I had to take off after I heard the mayor speak.
Well, I'm glad we get this opportunity this morning because when I heard your idea of a housing corporation, it certainly caught my attention. What is a housing corporation and why should a region consider establishing one?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. So
Perfect.
During the budget discussions last year, it felt like we were trying to decide and being asked to choose between housing and other core responsibilities like roads and infrastructure. So we shouldn't be having to make those choices. So the question did come to me, do we have the right structure to build the housing this community needs, or do we need another tool? So that's what this is basically bringing the housing off of the regional books and giving it to this corporation so that it can solely focus on just that, building housing, and we don't have to worry about, again, going between should we pave this road or should we build this house.
Would the region, though, fund that corporation? Like, is that a line item then in the budget?
No, so it would be its sole entity on its own. The idea is to use a mix of tools, right? So it could be from senior government funding. The other thing that it does is it opens it up to different funding that the region itself can't. So, for instance, mortgages. The region cannot take out a mortgage. This corporation would be able to tap into that. It can do project financing. It'll have rental revenues and strategic use of public assets. So one of the things that I've talked to staff about on the initial side of things is how can we start this with capital? So for me, I'm one that, like you, I like to pinch some pennies, or nickels now, I guess it is. So for me, looking at how can we fund this to get it off the ground? So if we phase this in as a slow start, so it's not here, we're going to throw it all at you and sink or swim. We phase it in and focus on the subsidized housing, supportive housing, and a mixed use of geared to income and at market or just below market rents, so that it offsets the whole cost of things. Now, we can do this in two ways. We can inject it with current assets that we have so that it can leverage those assets and use those funds to pay for new construction. There's all different types of ways for us to do this without it being a line item year after year.
Is there any precedent for this? Are there any jurisdictions that have set up a municipal housing corporation successfully?
There's many. Where I have been looking, and I've been looking all over, all over Canada and into the U.S. as well. There's one in particular in Halton that has a supportive housing subsidiary of its component to its housing corporation, and I'm very intrigued, and I will be going to see them in the next month or so. I will be visiting Toronto housing in May, and I'm trying to set up a couple others to go and tour and see what they've done. I'm one of those people that don't like to recreate the wheel. You don't need to spend money when somebody else has done it. Go and see what they're doing and see how we can tweak and implement it in our. And again, it's not going line for line and copying what they're doing, but what will fit here with what they've done.
If memory serves, Joe, we're into the hundreds of millions, are we not, when it comes to the plan to end chronic homelessness? Or is
Absolutely.
it? Yeah. And so does this, would this housing corporation sort of replace the money that's being spent on that in some way?
So, yeah, the point of the review is to see whether there's a model that we can reduce long-term pressures on the levy by using better financial tools like outside funding, more focused delivery structure, right? Doing nothing, there's a cost to that, and you just nailed it on the head. We have to look at other tools that we can use, and that's exactly what this is another tool. We are strongly and heavily weighted on shelters. I want to reduce the need for shelters, and that's where the supportive housing part of this comes in, is we need to have a corporation like this to focus solely on housing and getting us out of the crisis that we're in today.
Who manages a housing corporation like this?
So it's run by a board, and how I see it, and I'm leaving it up to staff to come back with some ideas as well, but how I personally see it is a mix of industry people as well as government officials, so that there is still that tie to government, but it's run solely by people that are in the industry.
In fairness, Joe, we're in a situation locally right now where what we are seeing on the water file to use current language, erodes some of our faith in local government. What makes you think that we can successfully manage something like this if we're not doing such a good job on the water file?
I think that's the difference, is this will be managed by people in the industry that have the experience in the housing side of things. It's one of those things where it won't be run by us. It will report to us, but it's solely managed by people in the industry as well as the board itself.
And in the bigger picture here, I think we all recognize, because we've talked about it so much, that housing is not supposed to be a municipal responsibility. So how do we square that circle? As opposed to doing something like this, shouldn't we just advocate to the level of government, hello, Ontario, that should be responsible for this?
How do I answer that? You're not wrong. It shouldn't be a municipal responsibility. However, we are here now. And like I said before, this is us using another tool that we have in our toolbox to help with this. I will continue to advocate to the provincial and federal governments to say that this shouldn't be a municipal issue. However, we are here, and like I said, doing nothing is still going to cost us. You alluded to the hundreds of millions of dollars that it's costing us today with property tax money, basically. So this is another way for us to look at it at the broader picture and do something about it, because frankly, we're doing a great job at what we're doing, but we're not doing it fast enough. And again, going through the budget deliberations, when I'm trying to decide whether we should build a road, fix infrastructure, or build housing, that shouldn't be an option.
You've obviously done some homework on this, looking at other jurisdictions, that visit that's coming up to Toronto, seeing the model in Halton, et cetera. You've spoken to staff about this. Where in the process are we here in the region of movement on this? Does it come back with a report? Does it come back with a motion? What does this look like?
Yeah, so my motion tomorrow will have staff, and I've already been working with staff since budget deliberations on this, giving them feedback on what I've come up with and what I found out there. But this motion on Wednesday, tomorrow, if passed, will have them go out, build a case, give us the numbers that we're looking for, and it's not going to create a corporation tomorrow. It's not going to write a blank check and things like that for this. It's just bringing us back how feasible this is and how we can implement it.
I like the out-of-the-box thinking. I'll give you that. And I'm really interested where this goes from here. But appreciate you thinking outside the box, Joe, and making time again for the show. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Mike. Anytime.
All right, enjoy your day.
You too. Talk
Thanks.
to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Joe Gowing, a regional councillor representing Kitchener, suggests, hey, maybe we could make a Waterloo Region Housing Corporation work around here, the likes of which we have seen in other jurisdictions, including here in Ontario. One that we have heard, I would say, a considerable amount about is in Whistler, and we've heard that through University of Waterloo planning professor Brian Doucette, who has been on the show often talking about housing. Look, in the big picture, I am certainly warm to the idea that we take what we are doing currently on the housing file and kind of amalgamate it into a housing corporation that's run by a board of industry professionals and sort of transfer those budget deliberations off the books so that you're not making those choices between the infrastructure that is necessary to keep our community operating and this housing that is so important. What this looks like and how long it takes for a housing corporation to sustain itself financially, et cetera, that is well beyond my scope of expertise. But I will be very curious as to what a final report looks like in this regard. I also, quite frankly, will be very curious as to the length of time it takes let's just assume that tomorrow this motion passes and staff is directed to undertake this work and come back with the report. How long from April the 22nd, 2026 until we see the results of that labor and the report coming back for further consideration? And then from the completion of that report to the creation of this housing corporation. There is a length of time, easily more than a year. And with each passing day, we know that the housing crisis only gets worse, right? So whatever time it takes us to get to the creation of a housing corporation, if we decide to move in that direction, is more time where we continue to, it seems anyway, spin our wheels on the problem. In the even bigger picture, though, I struggle a little bit. And if you were listening yesterday, when David Drew was here, he comes by every Monday morning at 11:30 with Drew's Views. And David reminded us again, as I just talked about with Councillor Joe Gowing, housing should not be a municipal responsibility. Full stop. It shouldn't be. Ontario is the only jurisdiction in all of the land in this beautiful country of ours, provincially or territorially, where housing falls on the backs of municipalities. It should not be that way. And yet it is. So as Councillor Gowing says, we are where we are. How are we best going to address the problem? We got to find a way. We have to find a way to get upper levels of government more involved in this, because doing it on the backs of local taxpayers is absolutely the wrong way to do it. Absolutely the wrong way to do it. And I don't know what more we can do to get the province to take notice. I'm not sure about that. Nonetheless, your thoughts on a local housing corporation. Is this a way forward in tackling the housing crisis that we face in this community? Should we just put all of our efforts into advocacy to the province? We have, what do we have here? Kitchener South Hespeler, Cambridge, and Kitchener-Conestoga. So 3 of our 5, 60% of our local MPPs are members of the sitting government. Why the hell are they not working their tails off on this file? I don't understand. With all the talk we have about it, all of the agencies that are doing the work to support people who are unhoused, why on earth are 60% of our local MPPs not fighting tooth and nail for more provincial support in this regard? I'll never understand that. Kind of like the pause that Councillor Gowing had to take when I asked the question in that vein. How do I answer that? How do I answer that politically without throwing any colleagues at different levels of government under the bus? Because, if you don't play nice in the sandbox, you don't get any toys. I'm starting to get worked up. I'm starting to get off track a little bit here. I think you understand the problem as well as I do. This is an idea, and I will say again, an out-of-the-box idea brought forward by one of our regional councillors. The motion will be discussed at tomorrow's regional council meeting. I suspect it'll move. Why not? I mean, we're doing what we're doing, and the problem isn't going away anytime soon. Is this the kind of out-of-box thinking that we need here in the region? Would love to get your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Doing nothing, there's a cost to that, and you just nailed it on the head. We have to look at other tools that we can use, and that's exactly what this is another tool. We are strongly and heavily weighted on shelters. I want to reduce the need for shelters, and that's where the supportive housing part of this comes in, is we need to have a corporation like this to focus solely on housing and getting us out of the crisis that we're in today.
Joe Gowing, a regional councillor who represents Kitchener, bringing forward a motion to his colleagues on regional council tomorrow, suggesting the possible creation of a Waterloo Region housing corporation. Is that the way forward as we deal with an escalating crisis in our community. Always curious as to your thoughts on these things at 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Dave, good morning.
Good morning. I have a small interest over the decades in teal, and the subject has come up quite often in regards to the government involved with public housing. And the main negative thing, and there seems to be no answer to it, is keeping the units and the buildings in relatively good repair. There's been nothing but horror stories going on in regards to that. And it's nice they're looking at it, but they got to keep an eye on the other. That's all I have to say. Have a great day, Mike.
Thanks, Dave. You too. It takes me back to, and one of the conversations we have around this issue is the reminder that it was in the mid-90s or so where the federal government got out of the business of public housing. And there's been a lot of talk about having the feds getting involved again. Dave is not too far off the mark, though. We have seen over the decades what happened to quote-unquote public housing, and hopefully those are teachable moments that if we were to have government re-enter the space, that we would do a better job at it this time around. And of course, there's the complete counter argument to that, whereby we allow the market to take care of things without any government intervention. It is a difficult fruit to peel here, if I can put it that way. And something connected to this that was in the news again this morning. If you were listening to All News Mornings with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, you would have heard our reporter Josh Piercy talking about the encampment at Weber and Victoria in Kitchener and the continuing saga in our Ontario Superior Court and Justice Gibson reserving his decision for now. The region is pushing now towards a June deadline to have those residents removed from the space at Weber and Victoria because we need to get going on the work for our new transit hub. Here's the thing, and this is just the cold, hard truth in all of this. We wouldn't be discussing the charter and the impacts on the charter and all of these other things if the region had just chosen initially to enforce existing bylaws and have police move in and remove people from the land upon which they are trespassing. And that's just the cold, hard reality of it all. And I know how unpopular that would have been and what it would have looked like. The optics would not have been great. But we could have, way back when, exercised our legal rights in that regard without moving this into the courts and having it drag out for years now. But here we are. For whatever reason, the region made this decision. And I appreciate the human-centered approach to this, and I don't want people to be mistreated. But the reality, the cold, hard reality of that situation is there are people trespassing on public property, and there are laws that exist that could have had them removed all that time ago. Instead, it went into the courts, and here we are today. An update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about a new development in Hespeler that not everybody is thrilled with. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. From the idea for a regional housing corporation to housing that is actually being built or at the very least proposed in Cambridge. This is the Northwest Hespeler Community Builders proposal. And we're talking about a 193 hectare parcel of land near Hespeler Road and Maple Grove Road in Cambridge. Ultimately, this could be home to about 8,500 to 11,000 plus people in what is currently described as vacant farmland. Dawn Hoskins is a Cambridge resident who took her concerns to Cambridge Council last week and joins us this morning to talk about it. Dawn, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a real pleasure, and I always like getting the perspective of folks who are more impacted than others by proposals like this. And I wonder what it is about the Northwest Hespeler community build that has drawn your attention and caused some concern.
Yeah, absolutely. As a Hespeler resident and somebody who would like to advocate for our fleeting farmland, I do feel that farmland is one of those tricky things where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, but it is fleeting. It is arable, fleeting land that is a semi-finite resource, and it's really hard to conceptually grasp that, I think, for a lot of people. It's just that people see it as a field, it's a perfect place to develop, but it's not. It's a resource, and it's finite, and we need to protect it. There's only about 5% of our land in Ontario that can be used to grow crops.
What was it like for you getting up in front of Cambridge City Council and sharing your views?
Oh, it was terrifying, as is this, but I just figure, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it scared, but I'm going to do it because I think that everybody's voice needs to be heard, and if nobody stands up, then it's going to get plowed over.
What was the response to your delegation?
There was no question, so I was a little concerned and surprised by that because my presentation was pretty lengthy. But there were definitely members of the community who, one, weren't aware at first, or were just kind of caught up with a secondary, really large development that was happening at 160 Blenheim Road. So I just feel like there was a lot of where do we send our attention? Because they're both really big and really impactful developments that are happening at the same time.
So Blenheim Road getting more of the attention than this Hespeler Road, Maple Grove Road proposal.
Yeah, there's definitely more of a community centered around that location, so I can definitely see why that was the case. And it is that development is near a pretty protected and special trail, so I can definitely see why people are gathered around that. And not so much here. There's not really many people located in this area, so a lot of people weren't even aware of it.
Not so many people located in this area of Hespeler.
Correct. Not just generally in Cambridge that I've talked to are aware of this development.
Right. Beyond the loss of farmland that you've noted, Dawn, are there any other concerns that this particular proposal raises for you?
Oh, absolutely. How much time do we have? For one, there's the obvious infrastructure concerns. It's a pretty unserviced area, absolutely unserviced area, more or less. So there would be, it's not just plopping houses down. There would be servicing roads, water, wastewater, everything, as well as the environmental concerns. We already have issues with road salt, and it would be putting dozens of roads, 37 kilometers to be exact, in areas that have little to no roads. There's one through road, Chilago Road, right now. So kind of infiltrating that with roads which align with really sensitive areas. And then there's so many issues, quite frankly.
Have you had any conversations with City Hall, your local councillor, or anything like that beyond your appearance before council last week? Not
directly. I did my presentation. I sent in my files, and I'm kind of just awaiting, I guess, the next meeting on the 26th. But other than that, not really, no.
This, of course, is a proposal right now. Is there any modified, scaled down version of this that would be more acceptable, or is this something that just you think this land should be left alone entirely?
I mean, quite frankly, there are several places within our city that could be developed and are awaiting development that are serviced and fully ready. And I do believe, I'm not against at all. I'm not against growth. We need housing, but we need affordable housing, just like you were just speaking with the your previous interview. We do need housing, and I'm not against it at all. But this goes above and beyond. We need to focus on our infrastructure and providing what our community needs before taking away something that, like, we have a food crisis as well. 1 in 8 members of Cambridge and North Dumfries experience food insecurity. Like, we're amplifying the problem in building on this land, and I think that there are places that are ready and able to be built on now before exploring this as an option.
What motivated you to step up and take your concerns to council?
Honestly, I came from a pretty small town that had farm fields, and I watched it get converted at a wild rate. And just thinking about the people who farm that land, like that is their life, that's their livelihood. And a lot of farmers don't actually, well, I can't speak on a lot, but I know farmers don't often own the land, they're renting it. And so they're just everything's getting plowed over. They can't find places to grow food, and we need to eat. So it's a catch-22, so to speak.
Yeah, we certainly heard an awful lot of that when it comes to the land that's being assembled in Wilmot Township, where it was being used for food production one day, and the next day they're looking for other places to continue growing their crop or producing their food, whatever that happened to be. And it might be further away, and they're traveling further in their farm machinery to get there, and there's all sorts of issues associated with that as well. I wonder, Dawn, since you brought this forward, you mentioned this is kind of a quieter area. Not as many people would even be aware of what's potentially happening on this parcel of land. Have any other neighbors stepped up and become aware of this issue that you're talking about here?
Yeah, so when I was at the city council meeting, I had 2 other members come up to me. One who is located on or in and around the area of the development, and another who is a Cambridge resident herself. But other than that, yeah, it's been really kind of people trickling in and wanting to know more of what's going on and what they can do.
Is there anything that you are aware of yet that can be done?
As of now, I would highly recommend reaching out to council. I can give that contact information if that's okay.
Yeah, by all means.
Sure. Okay. So it's the email is for Melissa Moore, who is the senior planner assigned to this process, and her email is M as in Mike Farwell, O as in Oprah, H as in Hespeler, R as in River, and M as in Mike at cambridge.ca. And you can also reach us on our Facebook page, our fleeting farmland at _Hespeler, just to stay up to date and find out more ways to get involved and also get that email. It's listed on a countdown that we have posted.
Excellent way to organize through social media. So our fleeting farmland _Hespeler on Facebook. Correct. And Melissa Moore's email address is there to help with this part of the campaign. Dawn, I appreciate you stepping up and speaking out on this, and thank you very much for making time for the show today.
Well, thank you for speaking with me, and I hope you have a great day.
I hope you do too. Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Dawn Hoskins, a resident of the Hespeler area of Cambridge. I always appreciate folks who take their issues directly to council chambers. And isn't it interesting that on the night that Dawn was there to talk about the Northwest Hespeler community build, there was another fairly significant project on Blenheim Road being discussed, and that one seemed to capture more of council's attention. But again, what we're talking about here is 193 hectares of what is mostly agricultural land near the intersection of Hespeler and Maple Grove Roads in Cambridge. And not as many people are aware of this. And sure, our fleeting farmland, my goodness, I will never forget. I will never forget being a much younger person and at a friend's grandparents' place. And he talked about my friend's grandfather, the houses that were across the street from his house in a very well-established neighborhood in Kitchener. It's where I went to elementary school. And he said when he bought the house, there was nothing but farm fields across the street. And so not only are those farm fields long gone, but like an entire community has grown up around it, including the elementary school that I attended way back in the late 1970s. And of course, the school was there before I. But it struck me because this was a neighborhood that I knew so well from having attended elementary school there. When I was a kid, we walked to school, okay? Both ways uphill. You know how it works, but we did. And so there was a lot of walking around that neighborhood and cycling around that neighborhood. I knew the streets extremely well, but they were also packed streets. I went trick-or-treating in all those places, right? And there was house after house after house after house. And to think that a house that I was standing in when my friend's grandparents had bought it, there was nothing across the street except an empty field. It's kind of the way it all started. And the alarm has been sounded around the loss of farmland for quite some time. We heard an awful lot about it when it came to the land being assembled for a future mega site for industrial use in Wilmot. We can go on and on about that. The loss of that farmland in support of the housing that we so desperately need. And these are the challenges that every community is facing right now. One of the other things that jumped out to me from what Dawn talked about is with the creation of these new roads that would service the subdivision, et cetera. We already have enough of a problem with salt and the runoff from that salt. You know, having spent as many days as I did last week in Sault Ste. Marie, let me tell you the difference in walking the streets of Sault Ste. Marie at this time of year versus walking the streets here in the region. Because up in the Soo, they don't use salt. As I'm sure you know, below a certain temperature, salt loses its effectiveness. So in terms of melting anyway. So up north, of course, they use sand. And going up to the Soo in the winter, like I do for hockey games, it's a pretty messy affair, to say the very least. And let me tell you, in the spring, how messy an affair it is. It was honestly, I think it added to the overall dreariness of the weather. We got some mild weather, and we didn't have a lot of rain, but it was overcast most of the time. But the ground cover, almost everything is gray because it's covered in this dust, fine sand, gravel, whatever. It was a mess. It was a mess. And, you know, you're walking through this and you're looking at, you know, on the one busy road we were on with the business frontages. I'm wondering how they're ever going to get their landscaping back to something that looks presentable, at least insofar as we believe things to be presentable here in Southern Ontario. But I was blown away at how much of that sand residue was left behind after, of course, the snow was gone. And then I compared that to my walk with Rosie yesterday afternoon, and I mean, our streets are bare, and that's because the salt has been run off by now. It's getting into the water systems, et cetera, down those storm sewers. Wild, incredible difference, to be sure. Just before our quick break, Mike is with us on the phone. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Mike. Up here in Bruce County and Huron-Kinloss County, they only use sand because they don't want the lake to be polluted with salt. And I agree with you. It is a mess in the spring because there's like I'd say a good inch or two of sand on the shoulders of the roads and in the gutters up here because we use nothing but salt. Also up in northern Ontario and out in the west, I have seen limestone being used instead of salt to melt stuff because the temperature is so cold. But, Mike, I think in the end of all of it, if it saves the Lake Huron or the Great Lakes from being polluted with salt, I think, and you put snow tires on, you should be okay. That's my thoughts, sir.
Appreciate it, Mike. And I don't disagree. And you know what? There might have been some limestone, now that you mention it, mixed in with what I was experiencing up in the Soo. I would prefer that our water sources be better protected and we deal with this mess in the spring. But let me tell you, It's one hell of a mess. All right, I got to take a break. And when we come back, it is that time of morning where we share with you your reminder that not everyone is a jackwagon. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This one, by the way, local. Shout out to Preston. You'll find out all the non-jackwagons there coming up on 570 News Radio.
I'm not against growth. We need housing, but we need affordable housing too. We do need housing, and I'm not against it at all. But this goes above and beyond. We need to focus on our infrastructure and providing what our community needs before taking away something. We're amplifying the problem in building on this land, and I think that there are places that are ready and able to be built on now before exploring this as an option.
The land in question, about 193 hectares at the intersection of Hespeler and Maple Grove Roads in the Hespeler part of Cambridge, could be home. I mean, it's all in the early stages, but with the proposed development, could be home to more than 10,000 people in the years ahead. But Dawn Hoskins took her concerns to Cambridge Council about a week ago and joined us on the show this morning to share those concerns about our fleeting farmland for one, and all of the other infrastructure concerns around a development of this size in that space. And these are the challenges that we face as communities across the land today. How to build all the places that we need for all the people, and the land that is lost in pursuit of those housing targets. It is around that time of day, in and around 10:20 every day. I like to take a break from the heavier stuff just to remind you that not everyone is a jackwagon. And a couple of weeks ago, I said, you know what we really need? We need some kind of punchy song for this, some kind of introduction so you know you have arrived at that part of the show. And I put the challenge out to you. And of course, you delivered within 24 hours. And then me being me and getting distracted by traveling for hockey games and this, that, the other thing, completely ignored my responsibility to, first of all, thank you. And second of all, let you know this is how we will know we've arrived at this time of the day.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
That is right. Not everyone on this street or in this region, particularly in the Preston part of Cambridge. I'm looking at you, St. Joseph Catholic Elementary School, which has begun a new challenge. It's the Reward for Kindness Challenge. First of all, shout out to the staff who noticed something simple, but what they thought was kind of important. Students needed more reminders to be kind, not just in school, but everywhere. So the Reward for Kindness Challenge was started. Students earn points for any act of kindness that they do outside of school hours. This could be like helping someone cross the road. That'll get you 2 points. You could mow a neighbor's lawn for 5 points, or you could volunteer, lead a local cleanup. That'll get you 8 points. Parents can send emails to the teachers at the school to confirm what their child did. Each class tracks its points. They have a big digital tracker that the whole school sees during daily announcements. And the goal is to reach 500 points by June the 15th. If they do that, 4 staff members at St. Joseph Catholic Elementary School in Preston who have beards will shave their beards during the last week of school. They've got 102 points so far, so they've got a little bit to go to reach 500 and get those beards shaved. But some students at St. Joe's have been cleaning up garbage in parks and their neighborhoods. Others helping share food with families in need, especially during Ramadan and Easter. The Reward for Kindness Challenge, because kindness costs you nothing. Go get them, St. Joe's, and make those teachers shave their beards. You see, not everyone is a jackwagon. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. It is a harm reduction vibe production. I love the way it sounds. And even if you don't like the style of music that you'll be hearing, maybe you are able to support the cause that it is in support of, which is sanguine in our community. The driving force behind the harm reduction vibe production is my old buddy James Brown joins me in studio to chat about the upcoming fundraiser.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, JB.
Hey.
What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just throwing a little party.
Tell me more about the party you're throwing and why you are throwing it.
Well, I'll start with the why. So a few months ago, a good friend of mine came into possession of what we would call a questionable substance. And he wanted to make sure that, there wasn't any fentanyl in it or anything like that. So he went to Sanguine to see if they could provide him with a few extra test strips. Upon his arrival, they basically said, we only have expired strips, so they're not going to be accurate. And unfortunately, we don't have budget right now for acquiring more. Now, we're not talking about safe consumption. We are talking about basic harm reduction supplies. That's relatively problematic given that the community that they serve and the population they serve doesn't necessarily have access to these supplies. My friend went home, he went on Amazon, bought some, had them the next day. Not a big deal. But they typically, serve the homeless, people with heavy addictions issues, things like that. People who don't necessarily have the extra cash to, get their own supplies to make sure that they are, about to consume safely, if you will. So when I heard about this and when we were talking about it, we were like, well, there's got to be something we can do. So we throw dance parties regularly, and we thought, why not put a cause behind it? So we approached Sanguine and said, hey, we would like to do this, but we don't want to do it kind of without your blessing. And they were all for it. They were all on board. They said, we're relatively bootstrapped. We don't have a lot of resources to put something like this together. So if you're willing to do it, we're willing to take your money, essentially. But it was in that meeting with them where we learned and discovered that when the safe consumption site in downtown Kitchener closed, Sanguine was the agency responsible for running it. They lost over $1 million in funding from the provincial government. And now not all of that funding was being used for the CTS site. It was to, run other parts of the agency, the program, et cetera. So they've taken a pretty big hit. So we said, okay, harm reduction, vibe production. Let's do it. So we are throwing a dance party this Saturday at the Union in Kitchener. We have three DJs, I am one of them, and then two other local heavy hitters. We have already raised over $900, and we want to raise that up. So that's why I'm here today. I want to appeal to Farwell's force. If you're listening to me right now, Google harm reduction vibe production. You can find the event link. It's usually either the first, second, or third hit on Google. We have a ticket called the Homebody Hero, where you don't have to come, which means you don't have to listen to electronic dance music if that's not your thing. But we'll still happily take a donation to support this cause, as little as $20. So if we get 30 people that can hear my voice donating $20 to this, I'm happy.
Yeah, and you're increasing right away your fundraising by about 65%. So there you go.
And we've already got, some great prizes from local partners. Ethel's, the Princess Cinema, lots of organizations are getting behind this because we're going to do a raffle on site as well. And it should be a lot of fun.
You said it's at the Union in Kitchener.
Yeah.
Where's that?
The Union is 122 or 124. It's on Sydney Street. So it's right near the Borden and Charles LRT stop. It's about an 8-minute walk from there.
Okay.
Or right up and around Value Village there at Weber University. Weber in Ottawa, sorry.
I am not, as you know, an electronic dance music guy. I'm trying to get out of the 70s where I am stuck, JB. You know this about me. But take me through, you said you throw parties like this all the time. Take me through an electronic dance party.
There's not a lot of alcohol happening. There's a lot of people that are just coming together to, be in community and dance together and share really positive space. And a lot of times they're all ages. So people are bringing their children. So they're family friendly events. And it's just a way for us to kind of come together and forget about the woes of the world, and just dance and have a good time. But this time we want to, again, raise attention and raise awareness that there is a systematic issue going on with an organization like Sanguine, and we want to turn that positive vibe into actual help.
Yeah. Who else are you working on this with?
I have 2 other co-organizers that are good friends of mine that are essentially the 3 of us are driving the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you start DJing?
So I started DJing 15 years ago with
Has it been that many already?
with the Much Video Dance.
Yeah.
As a way to pay for college when I was studying broadcasting. But then took a bit of a break, and now I've sort of started revisiting it as more of a hobby and a passion. It's electronic music that I'm focusing on now, and because I'm half blind, so my DJ name is Half Eyes. And so I'm just trying to do different things and play as many friends' birthday parties, local community festivals, things like that. And like I said, I'm number 2 on the bill for this one, so it should be fun.
How does Half Eyes enjoy his work to this day?
Oh, it's good. It's it's fun to not see what's coming next.
What about what you're hearing next, though? What's the secret to a good mix?
The transition.
Yeah.
Kind of like when a radio announcer, here's a little inside baseball. It's, they call it hitting the post. For those that don't know, when an announcer's talking on top of the music bed, and right as they're done talking, the song, the vocals kick in or the lyrics kick in. That's called hitting the post. The DJ equivalent essentially would be matching the beats so that when one is ending, the other one is seamlessly continuing, and it's basically sounding like one track all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your buddy doing? The one that first came across the substance that Sanguine couldn't help with. He went on Amazon. Everything turned out fine.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
He's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got $900 raised so far, but we want to make sure we can increase that a whole lot more.
That would be super helpful, super great. Again, Google harm reduction, vibe production. The website we're using is called Luma. It's a great ticket website. They're really easy to work with from a customization perspective. It's fun. It's purple. You can't miss it. Again, the ticket type is the Homebody Hero. As little as $20 helps us get that much closer to raising a lot more money than we're already at right now.
Are you setting a goal? Do you have one in your mind? Do you want to share it out loud?
I would love to go to Sanguine with $2,000, $2,500 if we can. Again, this is our first crack at it. We are bootstrapping this. We paid for the venue ourselves. We aren't doing any paid advertising or promotion. This is the biggest promotion piece that we kind of have going, aside from throwing stories on our Instagrams, but my friends are starting to get sick of it. So I'm glad I have another avenue to promote this thing.
I'm sure when you talk to, is it Cassia or Kasia?
Kasha.
Kasha and Silent Sid.
Yeah.
I'm sure when you said to them, hey, I know this guy in radio. We go way back. I can get us some promotion that's not on the Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were happy with it.
And here we are talking about the harm reduction vibe production. So Google that, harm reduction vibe production, and you can be the homebody hero that doesn't even have to attend. If electronic dance music is not your thing, that's fine.
If it is your thing,
even better.
Tickets are only $20. They are $30 at the door, so buy them in advance. That's what we're telling everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did your fellow DJs respond when you said, "Hey, I've got this idea. I want to put this thing together"?
They didn't even hesitate. They said, "Oh, we're in, totally, 100%." Yeah. Silent Sid is one of the residents of Jane Bond, so he's one of the regular DJs that spins there. Kasha is all over town with all kinds of events, and they're the kind of people that when you can put a cause in front of them, they're all in, because they want to share their music, they want to share that gift and that passion anyway. We're all just music lovers that want to share, and if we can do it in a way that is like, oh hey, yeah, let's share with the community and actually do something positive with it, then yeah, absolutely.
All right. It comes up on Saturday from 7 until 11. Really an electronic dance music show ending at 11 p.m.?
It's because the venue has a curfew.
Okay.
The venue is right next to a condo building, and it's across the street from I don't think the Rockaway Golf Course has anything to do with this curfew. I think it's more the condo, but they have noise restrictions that they have to follow. And you know what? We're not getting any younger, so it's not the end of the world that one of our parties can end at 11 o'clock at night.
I like that, because I remember years ago when we were having that big EDM festival at Binghamton.
Ever After. Yeah.
Ever After, that's right. And listen, I live a good distance from it, and I knew people out in Breslau that were still talking about the thump, thump, thump that you could still pick up from all those miles away.
When Ever After was still running, I used to live near Rim Park in the north end, and you could hear the thumps very I mean, it's not that far from Binghamton's, but still, it was apparent that something was going on.
Absolutely. Okay, something is going on Saturday. It's the Harm Reduction Vibe production in support of Sanguine. Great backstory on this. Appreciate you stepping up and doing this for your community for no other reason than you realize there's an organization that's doing some good work and they could really use some bootstrapped funding.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely love it. James Brown, Half Eyes, or as I've always known him, JB. You might hear his voice on the show every once in a while. It calls in. I'd like to check up on him, make sure he's still doing okay.
I'm going to call in on Monday, and hopefully I'm raving about the amount of Farwell's Force members that stepped up and donated.
That's right.
You're on, folks.
Okay. Again, just Google Harm Reduction Vibe Production. That'll take you to the website. I'm on it right now. Really easy to be that homebody hero, even if you can't attend, but you want to support Sanguine. $20. Let's take them from $900 up over $2,000. Our mission, should we choose to accept it. Let's find out if we can.
Thanks Farwell.
Thanks, JB.
Cheers.
It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Okay, I'm going to make two quick confessions as we get into this next segment about the annual peanut butter campaign. And if there's any kind of campaign that I can get behind, it'll be a peanut butter campaign. I love me some peanut butter. I really do. I love me some butter tarts too. You know that. But, oh man, do I love me some peanut butter.
Okay, crunchy or smooth?
Oh, no, smooth all the way.
Okay.
Like, what's this crunchy nonsense? Carrie, really?
Peanut butter.
Okay, you want to go down this path, Goose? Let's go down this path because I'm that guy that does the natural stuff, like the I don't know, like you have to really mix it, and I think it's the all natural, right?
Okay.
And true story. Many years ago, when I got on the kick of the real, if you will, peanut butter,
right?
I forgot to bring mine to work the one day. Somebody else had a jar of it there, and I used it instead, and it tasted like candy, the difference. I don't know what else is going on in there.
Well,
anyway,
there might be a little sugar in it.
There might be a little sugar.
But a lot of protein.
Exactly. And I love sugar, and yes, but anyway, the protein is good. Carrie Gousset is in studio with me, Community Engagement Coordinator with Food4Kids Waterloo Region. Great to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely anytime, especially for you and the folks at Food4Kids. So here are the couple of quick confessions. One is I like to try to fool people into thinking that I know everything that's going on around this community. But the truth is I rely on people like Carrie who send emails and say, hey, dummy. No, she doesn't say it that way.
Hold on. I didn't say.
You didn't say that.
I did say Mike.
It was a very nice email. I read Mike as dummy most of the time because that's how it goes. But you let me know about the 5th annual peanut butter campaign that was getting underway. And then, as most know, I was up in Sault Ste. Marie last week, hence our conversation this morning when I'm back in studio. But I got back from the Sault, and in our office at home, on the desk were 2 massive jars of peanut butter. So I said to my beloved, I said, what's with the peanut butter? But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know, because she's on top of everything too. She's like, well, Food4Kids, they're having a peanut butter campaign. We have to help out. I'm like, of course
she knows.
She knows. So we got some peanut butter at home because we want to support. And you're here because you let me know the things that I want people to think I already knew, which I didn't. Tell me more about the peanut butter campaign.
Well, can I tell you first why we're doing this? Yeah. So Food4Kids Waterloo Region, we are currently feeding 1,475 kids every single week. We deliver food bags to 132 schools within the Waterloo Region, elementary schools. We feed children ages 1 to 14 who are living in food insecure homes. Now, Mike, you and I are from here. We're born and raised here, right? I love this region. I love, I'm from here. I love it. That this is happening in my place, in my city, is unbelievable. That there's so many children that are literally coming to school every day without a lunch, without snacks. So children have some access to some food when they're at school, but what happens when they go home? So that's where we step in. We're feeding kids every weekend and all school breaks. It's about 179 days of the year. So summer will soon be upon us, and I know it doesn't feel like it. Will spring ever get here?
You promise? You promise, Carrie?
Well, according to the calendar. When summer comes, then what do these kids do that don't have enough food, that are living in food insecure homes? So we deliver a food box to their doorstep every single week of the kids in our program because they need to eat. Every child needs to have food. No child should wonder where their next meal is coming from, right?
Especially here.
Right.
Yes.
In this incredible region that we live in.
Absolutely.
So this now takes me to our 5th annual peanut butter drive. And so we do this every year. Well, 5 years we've done it. And these jars of peanut butter will go into those food boxes that are delivered right to the doorsteps of the kids in our program all summer long. Natural or not, crunchy or smooth.
Don't ever listen to me. Is what Carrie is saying very nicely. Get the crunchy. Fill your boots.
Listen,
with crunchy.
It's amazing protein though, right? And kids love peanut butter.
They do.
And this is empowering also them. A kid can open the top of a peanut butter jar, they could spoon it right out and eat it with a spoon, or get that knife out and slather it on a piece of bread that we're also supplying them for a meal, right? So this is why we're doing this. But we reach out to our community because here's our goal this year, Mike: 5,000 jars.
Okay, you got 2 from the Farwell household. Maybe I'll get 2 more on the way
We're almost
home.
there.
Yeah. Only 4,998 to go, kids. We can do this.
No, but so we set a goal last year, but we far exceeded it. We got 4,150 jars last year. And so we said, you know what? This community is so incredible. We're going to set 5,000 jar goal this year. And we're pretty confident that this region will step up. We see people, doing kind of their own campaigns. They're just so creative, right? People. So they're collecting jars from their friends and their family and their neighbors and their coworkers. We've seen businesses challenge other businesses to match their jars. Offices kind of come together and collect jars, and then they bring them all into our facility, and we're counting as we go. We have a little a peanut butter jar on our blackboard in the office, and it's coming up. So yeah, it's great.
Who does a better job of collecting peanut butter? That's what we're trying to figure out here. Challenge each other.
Yeah.
And get these jars of peanut butter to Food4Kids.
Right.
Okay.
So I love to see kids doing it. We're seeing a lot of kids actually, and they're just going to their friends and their family and honestly, parents, friends, they have their parents take it to their office, and but kids helping other kids is such a special thing to see. So we see it all the time, and this region really does step up. You got a force.
We do,
and they step up all the time.
All the time.
And so this is what I see in this region. There's kind. Not everybody's a jackwagon.
You're absolutely right.
There are very kind people here.
Many kind people, and
we see people all the time stepping up to help feed the children in the region that otherwise don't have enough food.
We've got about 400 members of Farwell's force now, Carrie. If every other member did 2 jars like the Farwells did, we'd be almost 1,000. So we're getting there.
And then they tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and then you have 10 jars. What if they all brought in 10 jars? We'd be there.
We would be there. Just like that.
So it's easy peasy, right?
I love the mathing.
They can do it. It's peanut butter math.
It's peanut butter math. It's
no, they can do it for sure. And so, yeah, we're just excited about this. We started at the beginning of April, and we're going to collect all the way till the end of June when the kids go off school, so that we can put these in the jars, or in the boxes, and deliver them right to the homes of the children. So
1,500 kids a week.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we know, Mike, there's about 4,000 kids in our region that don't have enough food. 4,000. So, not on my watch. We're going to do everything we can because I love this region. It's close to my heart, and this shouldn't be happening here. So we're gonna do our best to feed the children that need food.
I absolutely love it. Where do we bring our thousands and thousands of jars of peanut butter?
Your truckloads.
Bring it in. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Herb Transport, hook it up. Let's go.
Come on now. You can drop them right off to our facility, and that's at 330 Trillium Drive in Kitchener. And we're Unit B, but we got signs. You can see them. And if you have any questions or wondering anything, check out our website, food4kidswr.ca. Food4kidswr.ca.
Okay. Food4kidswr.ca. 330 Trillium Drive?
330.
330 Trillium Drive.
Trillium Drive.
Bring the peanut butter there. We're going to collect 5,000 jars of peanut butter by the end of June. Love the work that you do. Keep it up, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for your time, Mike.
Carrie Gousset joins us, Community Engagement Coordinator with Food for Kids Waterloo Region, on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. It is the Early Language Learning and Literacy Alliance of Waterloo Region, better known as ELLA. You see, Early Language Learning and Literacy Alliance of Waterloo Region, or ELLA. And they will next week be hosting on Monday night at the Kitchener Public Library a community conversation that will be live streamed simultaneously as it's happening at the KPL. A conversation about how tech is rewiring how our kids grow, learn, and relate to the world. Very pleased to be joined on the show this morning to talk more about it by Tara Lynn Scheffel, who's an associate professor of language and literacies in the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier University and an ELLA advisor. Tara Lynn, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for this invitation to speak with you today.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for making the time to join us. And along with Tara Lynn, we have Nicole Stamp with us as well, who's going to be one of the hosts of this event at the KPL next week, and also the host of Media Stamped. You may know Nicole from previous work, including with TVO, our public broadcaster here in Ontario. Nicole, thank you very much for your time, and good morning.
Good morning. Thrilled to chat with you today, Mike and Tara Lynn.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure for sure. Tara Lynn, if I could start with you on ELLA itself and why this is important to have these conversations around early language learning and literacy here in our community.
Absolutely. ELLA is an alliance of 20 plus organizations, as you mentioned. And so all of our members are working with families and all our young humans in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. And as we talk, we think about, what is the most important big ideas that everyone is experiencing or wondering about. Our activator, Kathy Lee Porter, part of her role is to look at where the emerging research is, what the growing concerns are, and to kind of bring that to us to think about where we might want to go next for our different events, such as the upcoming Generator event. And so a big idea or a big topic has really been about the impact of tech, screens, ed tech, AI on our little humans and their caregivers. And we really want to explore and reflect on how it can help, how it might be hurting, what we can do as caregivers, professionals, individual organizations, but also collectively.
Nicole, I feel as though in your work with Media Stamped and elsewhere that you almost have a front row seat to this and the impact that all of this screen time, all of these various tech influences are having on our young people. What is it that you see through your work?
Well, if you think about it, a 10-year-old kid today has seen more news media by the age of 10 than most world leaders in history saw in their entire life. So think about the amount of information that's coming at our kids when they're on their phones, on their tablets. They're seeing advertising, social media, all kinds of information, including false information. They're getting all of this time on a screen instead of with another human being or with a caregiver. So all of the social development that kids are having from when they're a baby, looking at their caregiver's eyes and mirroring facial expressions and babbling together, a lot of that is being mediated by an adult who's looking away at a screen, or the child is learning something from a screen. in some ways, kids are missing out on some of the one-to-one immediate interaction. And in a way, we're doing a huge experiment on today's kids, and we don't know yet what the outcomes will be from all of this technology. Some of it is probably great. Kids today are smart, they're fast, they get it, they can do it, solve problems really quickly, and part of that is probably because of the speed of the things they're learning on screen. But could there also be costs in terms of self-esteem development, intellect development, attention span? We are seeing, that there are some costs to kids who are heavily using tech. And some kids are using tech for as much as 3 hours a day in primary years, up into 7 hours a day for high school kids. So it's kind of a big experiment, and we don't have the final data yet. But I think it's really important for us as adults to be keeping an eye on our kids and the effects that this is having on them.
I'm glad you mentioned this, the role that adults play in this, Nicole, because the ubiquitous nature of this technology and how much information our children are absorbing. I mean, I'm not even sure we are entirely aware of it because it is simply everywhere. And I think we have to be careful, and we want to be careful about, making the adults in the room feel bad about these things, but also at the same time, finding some ways to control and manage how much it is that our young people are consuming.
Yeah, I think if you were to go back in history, I'm sure when the printing press was invented, when the TV was invented, you had people saying, oh, children will always be reading, children are always going to be in front of the TV, always going to be playing video games. All of that was true. The thing that's a bit different with current screen time is that your TV, your books, your newspapers were not calling out to you to come back to them again and again with beeping notifications. They weren't especially designed to be as addictive as current screen technologies are. And so as an adult, I feel kind of bad about how much time I spend on my devices. So with Media Stamped, I tried really hard to find ways that are practical for families and young people to think about how they want to use screens and make decisions about how they want to use screens. Because lots of screen use is great. It's fun. You can connect with people. You can follow your interests. And maybe that's a more valuable way of using your screens than too much passive doom scrolling or playing, games or being on forums where some of the content isn't as positive. But I think it's something that we can all look at intentionally. And the more that young people know about how their screens are calling to them and grabbing their attention and are being designed to steal their attention in exchange for ad dollars, the more they can make decisions that are actually helpful and beneficial to them. I actually know a 7-year-old who said to his parents the other day, I think I'm getting too much of my brain dopamine from using screens. I'm going to play piano today instead. So I think if you give kids the knowledge, you can actually affect behavior in a more intentional way. It's not about guilt. It's about understanding how these devices are working on us and deciding what you want to do with your life instead.
That's fascinating, the 7-year-old. But I like that point, too, that if the kids understand the options, they are likely to exercise them as well. There's a little bit of empowerment associated with that for sure. Mm-hmm. Tara Lynn, why is it important to facilitate, for Ella to facilitate a conversation like this in our community?
I think those points that Nicole just made are so excellent. And we want to generate awareness and reflection. It's not about trying to say what you should or shouldn't do, but to get together. We were hoping parents, caregivers, youth, general public will join this conversation. I think it's on everyone's minds. It's a debate that's been going on for many years, but like Nicole said, it's intensifying, it's changing. AI is really, it's coming so quickly, all the things that are possible, and children are really becoming more reliant on it, or there's a concern that they are. As an educator, I'm always looking for the possibilities and the strengths that are there, but it's also important that we are aware of the potential drawbacks and how we can work together as a community to help our young children grow and learn through those.
And on that point, Tara Lynn, as an educator looking for how we can harness those strengths, I think it's also important to point out that not all tech is bad, and harnessing some of that and empowering young people to use it and use it effectively is an important tool moving forward.
Absolutely. I agree so much. And I think there's really great research that has is looking at that, right? At what children, just thinking about the scenario that Nicole just shared, right? Our youth have great insights as to their own experiences. And when we can create those opportunities for them to work with the technology, work with the AI, but also apply that critical thinking, think about those choices, what they're doing, how it helps them. We can learn a lot from them as well.
Nicole, I think the big question in all of this, and you've sort of alluded to it with kind of the unknown risks that may be associated with all of this. And the big question being asked at next week's event is whether or not this tech is actually rewiring how our children are growing and learning and relating to the world. In your work, Nicole, what are you seeing? Do you get the sense that is the case?
Yeah, so my show Media Stamp teaches media literacy to kids age 9 to 14. And so we did a lot of research. We read a lot of the current research and spoke to a lot of experts. One thing that we learned was that kids who are online for more than 3 or 4 hours a day have noticeably worse self-esteem, body image, and sleep. The lucky thing that we found out was that some of those effects are actually reversible very quickly. If you can cut your screen time from 3 hours a day to 1 hour a day for 21 days, your self-esteem improves noticeably. Like, there's actual research that supports this. So what does that mean for a family? If you're noticing that a kid in your life is maybe having self-esteem issues with the phone or feeling very irritable, distractible, mood issues, if you can try to replace some of that screen time with something that's a more positive activity. I mean, now that it's spring, get outside, play catch after dinner, go for a walk as a family, do a puzzle together, find some kind of activity that you can do together face to face that replaces a couple hours a day of screen time. Within just 3 weeks, your child is going to turn around a little bit and notice higher self-esteem and a little bit less depression. There's actual research to support that. So that's surprisingly easy, right? If I told you there was a pill you could take that would turn your life around in 21 days, you'd probably take it, right? So I think as a caregiver, to think about, okay, what can we do with our time? What can we do for an hour and a half after dinner every day or after school every day to try to replace phone time with something that's more positive? That's one strategy that people can use. There's lots of other strategies. There's devices you can use, software you can put on your phone to cut your screen time, habits you can use. Like, I always suggest to people that they don't charge their phone in the bedroom. Charge your phone in the kitchen. So overnight, your phone's in the kitchen, and the last little bit when you go to bed, you can read a book, you can daydream, but don't scroll your phone just before bed. And first thing in the morning, don't touch your phone until after breakfast. If you can do that, you're helping yourself get better sleep at night, and you're setting your brain dopamine levels in the morning a little bit lower, so you're not hungry for that extra stimulation all day. Just letting your brain acclimate to the real world instead of the screen world first thing in the morning for an hour can change your relationship to your phone all day. So there's lots of little tips like that we uncovered that are all research supported. So we shared that kind of information with young people, and they were excited to take it. Maybe not every day. I mean, the phone is fun for a reason, but to realize, okay, it's exam week, I have to focus. Okay, I have a big competition, I have to focus this week. And now I have some strategies to help me get away from my phone. At the Ella Generator event, we're really lucky to be joined with Sinead Bovell, who's a technology advocate and a futurist as well. She is the United Nations expert advisor to the future of work and AI. So she also has a huge amount of research and information to share and has a big platform where she's been able to talk about how technology and screen use are affecting us. So I'm personally really excited to hear from her as well.
Yeah, I think we've got a real powerhouse lineup, to say the very least. Tara Lynn, is there still an opportunity for folks to get involved in this next Monday night?
Absolutely. Registration is open. If everyone just does a Google search for Little Humans Big Tech, they'll come up with the registration page. It's an Eventbrite page. It's still open. We would love to fill the space and just have as many people there as possible who are interested in this conversation. And, we are so fortunate to have both Sinead Bovell and Nicole Stamp who will moderate the conversation for us. And I'm definitely very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I have no doubt many in the community are. This really strikes close to home. Tara Lynn, Nicole, thank you so much for your time on the show this morning, and look forward to next Monday's event.
What a pleasure to talk to you, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Thank you, Tara Lynn.
Thanks, Mike.
Nicole Stamp and Tara Lynn Scheffel joining us on the show. Nicole is the host of Media Stamped, and she, along with Sinead Bovell, will be on stage moderating this community conversation, Big Tech, Little Kids. It is put on by our Early Learning, Language and Literacies Alliance here in the region. Tara Lynn Scheffel is an associate professor, language and literacies in the Faculty of Education at Wilfrid Laurier University and an Ella advisor. This is all being run through Ella, Waterloo Region, as I said, the Early Learning, Language, and Literacies Alliance. And all you have to do is Google Little Humans, Big Tech. This is taking place next Monday evening at the Kitchener Public Library from 6:30 until 8. It will also be simultaneously live streamed. So if you can't get into the auditorium at the KPL, you can stream this online. Little Humans, Big Tech. Be sure to check it out. And because I do think it hits close to home, I wonder how you have managed to deal with this in your world, or if these are the sorts of things that concern you, that ubiquitous nature of these devices that are constantly feeding us information. And when you reach a certain age, if you're a later adopter because you are already a grown-up and these things came into your life, I think you might have an easier time managing your time with that device. What about for these young people whose entire existences have been spent in the digital world? As you heard Nicole say, by the time they are 10 years old, they've already consumed more media, more information than most world leaders. By the time they are 10, because this is the world they grow up in. The information is always there. It is right at their fingertips. And okay, sure, you be the one that puts restrictions and controls around how much those devices are used, how much screen time is happening in any household. I'm sure it can be done. Boy, oh boy, you got to be like Farwell-esque hard ass in order to accomplish that. Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Lots of screen use is great. It's fun. You can connect with people. You can follow your interests. But I think it's something that we can all look at intentionally. And the more that young people know about how their screens are calling to them and grabbing their attention and are being designed to steal their attention in exchange for ad dollars, the more they can make decisions that are actually helpful and beneficial to them.
Nicole Stamp is the host of Media Stamped. And she, along with Sinead Bovell, will be moderating a community conversation at the KPL next week. It will be live streamed simultaneously, but you are welcome to be in that audience in the auditorium at the Kitchener Public Library for Big Tech, Little Kids, and the impact that all of this tech is having on our young people today. The absolute deluge of information, not all of it accurate, not to mention the impacts on our social development when a lot of that socialization is happening on a screen and not in real life. Teralyn Scheffel, an associate professor at Wilfrid Laurier University, also joined us. This is an event that is hosted by our local organization, ELLA, the Early Language Learning and Literacy Alliance of Waterloo Region. Again, if you just Google Big Tech Little Kids, it will point you in the direction of registration for that conversation next Monday evening. And I think somewhat related to this, if I can take it in this direction, something that we talked about during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, the use of closed-circuit television cameras, CCTV cameras, by regional police. I'm sure you've heard about this program. It's being rolled out around the region. And yesterday, Kitchener Council was asked to consider the placement of 2 cameras for starters anyway, in Kitchener. Downtown Kitchener would be one on King Street, another on Fairway Road by Fairview Park Mall. And that idea was one that Ward 3 councillor in Kitchener, Jason Deneau, was very receptive to, because Fairview Park Mall and the surrounding neighborhoods are in his ward.
Being that I represent Ward 3 and being that Fairview Park Mall is in my ward, I think this would really alleviate people's concerns if they know that there's opportunities to catch some of these really bad people, and not from our community. Most of them are not from our area, as Ms. Davis said. A lot of them are coming from the GTA, Brampton, Mississauga, Toronto. And so having something to deter them from doing these smash and grabs, I think, is a way to make our community feel safe. I have another part of my ward that's they deal with car thefts on an ongoing basis. While this is not necessarily in their vicinity, my hope that it would actually move to that area. and again, not have police have to deal with their time knocking on doors, where they could use this as an investigative tool and hopefully solve a crime a heck of a lot quicker than sometimes they are now.
Again, slightly related, right? From the screens that we stare at and that's delivering all of this information to our kids to what we might describe as tech for good. We are constantly being surveilled, and this did not pass unanimously at council. Councillors Chapman, Davey, and Ioannidis were opposed, but it will move forward, and Kitchener becomes the second local municipality after Waterloo to adopt this technology as a crime suppression tactic. For the reasons that you just heard from Councillor Deneau, I feel as though I'm okay with this. And I know it's been said that if you've got nothing to hide, you shouldn't worry about it, is the wrong way to go about thinking about one's privacy. But if it's going to deter crime or at least help those responsible for crimes get caught, I don't know how I could be opposed to something like that. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. You see, it's not you, it's me. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. This is the way I have decided to introduce our monthly conversation with the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, Philip Mills, who joins us to talk about what is still, I do believe, the number one issue affecting this and other communities across the country. We like to talk about housing once a month. And Phil, this is the best I got for you today. I don't know why I think it's me, not you, and whatever, but anyway, here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for putting up with me and the random places that my mind sometimes takes me.
That's the best places to go. You have to let your mind wander if you want to deal with the big stuff.
Absolutely. And your mind is always on the big stuff. And recently you're thinking about not so much a shortage of units of housing, but actual homes, which is why I said it's not you, it's me. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. It's not the units shortage, it's the homes shortage. What are we talking about when we get into these conversations around units versus homes?
So I think it's a complexity that's hard to describe to everybody. Like at a certain point, there is a very basic supply and demand element to the housing issue we're facing. More units, which is, any sort of housing product, that's a standalone single family dwelling to a rental, small apartment, like that's a unit. And that we do need more of those. But that's kind of where our imagination and understanding stops. We're just like, every announcement is we're going to build X number of, new units. There's going to be X number of doors. It's the way the government funds this sort of stuff. Everything is around units. And somewhere along the way, we just forget the fact that people live here and that people have choice, and they should have choice. And we should think about whether what we're building is what people actually need. Does this create thriving? Does this create community? Does this create healthy people? Or do we just put a unit there? Because so much of this time when we're driven by units, people are the last thing we start to think about. It's who's going to buy it? It's the investor that's going to buy this. It is the density numbers. It's everything but a person. And I think when we focus on units, we lose sight of what we're trying to really get at, which is a place for people to live.
I love what you said there about our people thriving, because Paul Bourne, who has written extensively on community in this region, talked about this some time ago, and we had him on the show to further the discussion. And that is around these big, tall buildings, density that we're creating in downtowns, which is great. We're getting units of housing, but are we creating a thriving community, even within that building itself? Because you're getting pretty limited square footage, not a lot of green space and amenities around, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that's the type of stuff we have to consider. Like, there's been a lot of movement recently. If you follow this stuff like like I do, and like a lot of folks do, you can start to see that like 1-bedroom condos are starting to show up a lot more. There's a lot more of them, and the price is coming down more and more every day. But they're not moving quick. It's not as though, hey, the prices came down, they started to move, because that has been something that was originally in a lot of spaces built for investors. And there's so many things that conspired for that to be built from investors, from the way that those construction units are funded to, the size and development of them. And now you've got a housing crisis, and you've got units in the play. And so like, how does that happen? How do you have a housing crisis and a growing segment of units that people aren't buying? Like, how does that tension make sense? And that was what I was trying to kind of really get my head around and figure out. And it came to the sense that because it's not necessarily a home for a lot of people. Like I was doing a design exercise with some planning students at University of Waterloo a couple of weeks ago. And there's about 60 students. We were talking about our Build Now project and what should we build and what's the unit distribution and all those things. And I just asked them, like, hey, how many of you would want to buy a 1-bedroom condo? Thinking like these are, soon to graduate. That in my mind and a lot of people's mind, like that's the person who would want a 1-bedroom condo. There's not necessarily, large family structures yet. They're generally pretty young folks. It's an intro into the housing market. And of the 60, like 3 said maybe. They just didn't want it. And I was like, that struck me as so surprising. But the more I talked to them, the more I heard, they're like, because that doesn't help me live. Like, that's not where I want to live. That's not the way that I want to be. That doesn't make sense. And so, in a push comes to shove, if you have no other option, sure, they would take it. But as soon as they're given a choice, as soon as there's an opportunity for something that isn't that, they don't want that product because it doesn't provide them the life that they want. It's not the home that they're looking for. And something as simple as going from a 1 to a 2-bedroom was more than enough for them to say, yeah, 2-bedroom, I'm in, because I can live there. I can have. And so I think we have to think about the people who are going to be inhabiting these spaces. What does it mean to live in what we're building? Because just more doors and more units doesn't necessarily solve our crisis, because housing is so much more than just a roof. That there's so much more to this in the way that people live. And I think we have to be really cognizant of that as we try to solve the crisis.
Isn't this, though, what happens, Phil, when we kind of let the market figure it out for themselves? Because you're getting parcels of land where you can intensify. So great, let's build up. The more units we can put in this building, the better the profit margin for the builder. You talk about investors wanting to buy those units and then maybe rent them out, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't this kind of what becomes the problem when we let the market decide?
It does, because the market isn't like free. Like the market is determined by so many other avenues and bits and pieces. You think about one of the reasons that they're doing it the way that they do is because like the government funds it that way. So if you're going to get, if I build 2 1-bedroom units or 1 3-bedroom unit, which are going to cover roughly the same square footage, I get more government funding if I build 2 1-bedrooms. It's because the government is incentivizing units, not necessarily bedrooms, not necessarily people. In the same sort of way, if you're building a condo, you have to pre-sell that. Well, who has the money to buy something for 4 years from now? That's an investor, not a person. And so you start to just really see how the system has conspired to create what we have, which is stuff that's not ultimately built for people. It's built for government funding. It's built for investors. It's built for bank policies, all of these other things. Because by the time you get to the end, you're like, hey, who's going to live here? There's too many other things that have taken up and have said, we don't get to, have a say in this process. And so we just have put people so far down the list of priorities to try and get the housing built because we're so focused on units, not necessarily on the people that ultimately get to live there.
And I think one of the other challenges then that we encounter in this, Phil, is for somebody like me. I grew up in your traditional, if you will, single family detached home subdivision. I still live in one today. That is what I am accustomed to. Quite frankly, that's what I like. And so moving into a building where my immediate neighbors are right next door on the other side of the wall or right above and right below, I'm not entirely, as much as sometimes I want to be done with the house maintenance, I'm not sure that is where I want to ultimately be. And so, if we can't keep building, we've been told, the way we've built because we've sprawled too much. So how do we fix that side of the equation?
Well, I think that's the give and take. And I think everybody's trying to figure it out. How do you steward our land assets well? What is the right level of density? How do you do this? Because I think you're right. It isn't possible for everybody to have a white picket fence and a backyard the way that a lot of us grew up and the way a lot of folks, believe that they should have, or the kind of that dream of, ownership and what was going to be there for them. Okay, that's not the case. But that doesn't mean now your option is an incredibly small, tiny 1-bedroom condo on the 30th story. Like there's some in-betweens between one, standalone white picket fence or 400 square feet in the sky. Like there's some, and I think that's our tensions. What is the right mix of these things to say, look, I know you wanted this and that's not something that we can provide as a community right now, unless you have a lot of money to go and buy it. But our only option for you shouldn't be this tiny thing. And so how do we create new opportunities? How do we create things that people can actually afford that allow them to thrive, allow them to live well, but isn't so expensive they can't afford it or so small it doesn't meet their life. Like there is an in between. That's that missing middle stuff. That's where those terms, like it's the middle of this, but it's so hard to build and the market is not designed to do that. So that's where folks like Habitat and Build Now and other affordable housing providers really do need to step in and make that available to the community.
And bluntly, people like me don't help these conversations an awful lot when we're like, this is what I've always had, this is what I want to have continuing. Because I've visited other places in the world, Phil, primarily in Europe, where the concept of housing the likes of which we have here in North America, the likes of which we have here in Waterloo Region, is vastly different. Basically, every place you pass in a city center is a multi-story, upstairs, downstairs stacked town or something like that. Brownstones, side by each, you name it. It's far denser than it is here in North America.
It is. The thing that they do so much better too is that they often have the amenities to make that work. And this is where you can't just stick a big building in the middle of a space without having green space, without having communal access, without having places to go and to gather. You think about that European courtyard, that space where you can gather, that city plaza where you can go and, engage in broader aspects of life. That has to come with that gentle density and that missing middle type housing. But if we don't do those two things, if we just say really tall buildings and no green space, no communal access, not like that, none of that works. And that's where I think we're trying to figure out as a community, how do we do that well? And we just we haven't executed great to date. And so I think we all need to be really mindful of that we are trying to figure this out. We are trying to build something better for people, but the answer can't just be, how do we maximize the most units possible? Because you're just going to create a whole bunch of other sort of problems. Like if people don't want to live, they won't. Forcing somebody to live in a space they don't want to live is not a good solution. And if the answer is, look, they'll take it because they don't have another choice, like that isn't fixing our problem. We're just offsetting our problem to something else. And you'll see different social issues, different lacks of connection, different civic engagement. Like all of that stuff comes when you're forced to live somewhere you don't want to be because it's the best you could do. So how do we give people real options to be a real part of our community?
And I think what we're really getting at here, and we hear this same phrasing used in other conversations, is that we have to put people at the front of this. It's not just about the doors, it's the people on the other side of those doors.
Absolutely. People live in houses. So how do we make sure that people have more than a roof? We owe it to people to give them more than a roof over the head. They deserve a home, so let's give them that opportunity.
Always a great conversation. I'm glad we do this on a regular basis. Phil, as always, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us on the third Tuesday. We're already there. Third Tuesday of every month at 11:30 to talk housing. Let's remember about the people for whom we are building the housing. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, tomorrow is Earth Day. We're in the midst of Earth Month. What is the Clean Miles Project? Oh, I think you're going to get a kick out of this one. We'll tell you about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, tomorrow is Earth Day, don't you know? We are in the midst of Earth Month, and maybe something, in honor of Earth Day that you would like to participate in is the very thing that we are about to talk about on the show, because it's an idea I can certainly get behind. It is the Clean Miles Project, and its co-founders join me on the show this morning. Sydney Collins being one of those co-founders. Sydney, good morning.
Good morning.
And along with Sydney is her co-founder in the Clean Miles Project, who is Dan Rajagopalan. Dan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. And Sydney, if I could start with you, tell me about the Clean Miles Project. What is this?
All right, so the Clean Miles Project is something that me and Dan have created. I, about a year ago, started just picking up litter on dog walks. I met Dan through the Stratford 5K. We both are avid runners, outdoors enthusiasts, environmental enthusiasts. He paired up with me, and we decided to create something that's bigger. So we've created the Clean Miles Project. It's an app you can download, track how much litter you create, how far you go, and see the community impact you're making.
So something that I know that runners like to do is obviously time their runs, set some PBs along the way. Dan, doesn't this fly in the face? Like if you're stopping to pick up the litter that you see along the way, what's happening to your PB on that particular run?
That's a great question. I mean, this is you. It's not just running, right? It's hiking, walking. It's just turning those everyday walks, miles, and just those hikes into small acts of environmental impact. So it's not all runners are always concerned about their time, especially if you're doing something great for the environment. They can look past that.
Why is this important to you, Dan? When you two meet at the Stratford 5K, like how does this become a thing?
No, Sydney. So I run the Stratford 5K, obviously in Stratford, and she's been running with us for the last 4 years. And I've seen her collect on socials, blogging on socials. So we reached out, and it was very important for us. We love the environment. We wanted to make a difference. Why it matters is that we all use the parks, trails, and sidewalks, and this is about taking shared responsibility for the spaces that we use.
Sydney, for you mentioned that you're out on dog walks, and obviously there was enough litter that attracted your attention that you decided, I got to start picking this stuff up. Like what was that aha moment for you, or the motivation to say, like, enough of this? I'm not just walking the dog. I'm making it a plog. I'm going to pick up some litter along the way.
Yeah, so, and this kind of goes back to your previous question to Dan. I love PBs as much as the next person, but you're not doing that every day. So I'd go and I'd run a trail, I'd do a workout, and then me and my friends would be like, hey, on our cool down back, like, let's grab some of this. Like, it's not a far run back. Let's grab it. Let's bring it to our cars, recycle, throw it in the trash when we can. It's when you see something and you decide to walk by it, you're making that choice either way, right? You're either making a choice to ignore it or you're making a choice to pick it up. So I just started to make the other choice where I'm starting to pick it up. And that choice has been absolutely so rewarding. So
how did you get from that choice, Sydney, to the app that is the Clean Miles Project?
And that would be Dan. So Dan created the app, an amazing engineer, very intelligent human, and just a kind spirit. Dan paired with me, and I've just been doing most of the marketing, social media, sending out videos, posts, stuff like that. And then Dan behind the scenes has been working so diligently on getting that app released, and it came out last week. And we've got tons of users, tons of great feedback. People love it. And with that app that he created, we've paired with Runner's Choice, 10-toeing running shoes, created amazing contest for people that are picking up litter on Earth Day. So between April 18th and 26th, if anyone goes out and picks up litter, they can be entered into this contest. We can see it on the app, how much litter they pick up, what they've done, and that's been awesome. So that's an incentive.
I love the incentivization. That's terrific. Just another reason, as if making the community a little cleaner wasn't enough. Dan, what's the app experience like? What am I going to be doing when I'm using the Clean Miles Project?
Yeah, going back to your other question as well, runners do like to measure stuff. So the app allows you to measure how many pieces of litter that you've collected on an event or on a run or a hike. So you are able to log those events on the app, as well as the app has a feature to track you using GPS. So you are tracking the distance that you're covering while cleaning, and then you have this impact in front of you that shows how many kilometers you've cleaned over time. And then you're also able to see how your friends are doing. Maybe you're on a team, how you're doing against everyone globally that's using the app.
What would be the ultimate dream here? That we've got a global team of runners, hikers, walkers, etc., cleaning up every trail, every piece of land that they're running on? Is that, like, what do you envision?
Absolutely. It really, beautifying the spaces that we use, keeping it clean, right? And it'll be great the app is partly to motivate those to pick up litter, as well as to measure the impact everyone that's partaking has on the planet at the end of the day, really.
Sydney, what about for you? When you first started picking up litter along your walks or runs and to this point now, what's your ultimate dream here?
Yeah, I was, I've already kind of seen a little bit of my dream come true. I told Dan last week that I'm so proud of us, but it's even little things like I went on the app the other day and I noticed that somebody posted a walk they did and they cleaned up a park. Now, this park's hard for me to get to. It's a little bit further away, and so I'd have to bring like trash bags and stuff like that, fill up my car. Somebody did it. And so I went in and I saw that, and they picked up like over 250 pieces of litter, and they did that entire trail. And sure enough, when I was back there doing a dog walk in that area, it was completely clean. And it was just like, holy crap, we can do this. Like, we can do this as a community.
I think it's great. I've said many times before on the show, prior to the two of you being here this morning, that it's one of my biggest pet peeves. It really is. At one point, that stuff was in your hand. There's no reason to drop it on our ground. Where can we find the app, Dan?
Yeah, currently it's available on Apple App Store. We're hoping to get the Android version out very soon. I'm hoping later tonight, but it all depends on Google. So we're crossing our fingers here.
All right. We'll point people to the App Store for now, but we'll keep them interested in watching for the Clean Miles project. I absolutely love what the two of you are doing. Timing couldn't be better now that we're into Earth Month, Earth Week, Earth Day is tomorrow. Thanks for what you've done and for making time for the show today. Really appreciate it.
Amazing. Follow us on Instagram as well.
Oh, what is it? The Clean Miles Project?
The Clean Miles Project.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we post our events. So keep up with that.
Right.
All right.
And our website is thecleanmilesproject.org.
Thecleanmilesproject.org, online on Instagram, The Clean Miles Project. Co-founders Sydney Collins and Dan Rajagopalan. Thank you both very much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Talkback coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
Allow me to begin our Talkback Hour, if I may, right here with an apology to our friends at Ella. That we had some folks on earlier today talking about the upcoming Ella event at the Kitchener Public Library. Ella is our local organization. It's an alliance of 20 different organizations that are involved with early language and literacy skills in our community. And their big event coming up next Monday, Little Humans, Big Tech. I was saying big tech, little kids. And I always listen, I want you to Google the right thing. This is talking about how tech and the deluge of information is rewiring our little ones' brains. And I think it's an important and a timely conversation. It's going to happen at the Kitchener Public Library next Monday evening, 6:30 until 8. It will also be live streamed at the same time. Little Humans, Big Tech is the name of it. I'm sorry for transposing that earlier. I want you to get to Little Humans, Big Tech when you Google it and register yourself for the event next Monday. Also, since it is in the news still today, and I guess it's unsurprising because when the MPPs are back at Queen's Park, it's an opportunity for the opposition to make some noise. And the big $30 million jet plane purchase and now potential sale or pending sale is something to make noise about. I received an email yesterday from Les, who writes to Mike at 570news.com. He says, Mike, I heard you say on this morning's radio show that Ford's decision to purchase the private jet was, for you, the straw that broke the camel's back. You mean The open for business license plates, the Greenbelt scandal, the backroom deals, the Bill 5 nixing of public participation, the Ontario Place sell-off, the tunnel under the 401, the weakening of environmental protection legislation, the record-setting multi-million-dollar Protect Ontario ad campaign, the attempt to nix bike lanes, the FOI clampdown, to name just a few. Wasn't enough? Come on, Mike. You're far too forgiving. For me, it was the final straw long before the private jet. Les, appreciate the email. I responded that way too. Appreciate the email. I guess you're far less forgiving, Les. And that's fine. Right? I mean, some of those things that Les mentioned, I couldn't give a tinker's darn about. But the jet for me was a bridge too far. But I'm here for the conversation. And since it is back in the news, and you heard Richard Southern's story on it at the noon hour, something that Premier Ford said yesterday really caught my attention, and I wonder what you think of it. I mentioned while I was on the air, because I could see Premier Ford on my TV monitor here in the studio at a Canadian Chamber of Commerce event in Ottawa, and he was taking questions, and I knew the questions would be about this, and I wished I could have read his lips. But this is one of the things that he had to say, and it rubs me a little bit the wrong way because media is invoked here, the media generally. That said, I think the Premier has a point. And, the more I think about it, the more I wonder if he had actually built the case ahead of time, instead of just buying the jet, have it come out that he bought the jet and then immediately decide to sell it. Like, I wonder if you could have built the case and brought the public along with you and actually got support for it. Because the idea, by the way, of a plane to serve the Premier of Ontario and our various ministers has been around for decades. It's just never gotten off the ground, pun intended. Premier Ford or this Ontario government didn't even try to build public support for it. But nonetheless, I wonder what you think of the Premier's position when he was taking questions yesterday.
Well, I heard loud and clear because I'm the only person in the world that gives out a cell number. And I heard loud and clear from the people that this was not the time to purchase a plane. So I've directed the staff, provincial staff, to be in contact, which they are, with Bombardier, sell it immediately and at the same cost. We took possession last week. I immediately sent that message out to the media. I heard from the people, and I'm the Premier that listens to the people. If they don't like something, I'm not too shy to change my mind and say, okay, this isn't the time to move on. I also understand the scrutiny. There's no one in this country that is scrutinized more than I am. I'm willing to take that. What kind of really disturbs me is the inconsistency with the media. We have the federal government, rightfully so, and let's put the Prime Minister to the side, that they went out and bought $753 million of jets for the ministers, rightfully so, by the way. We live in a massive country. No word. When it comes to the Quebec, buying $107 million of 3 jets, which I agree. They live in a massive province. No scrutiny. But when I do it, I guess there's a double standard, and that's my position. I have to take that. But I just want to explain to the people, our province is massive. I have to get to the north numerous times. There are no charter flights up in the north. This was not Doug Ford's plane. I'm going to repeat that. It was not Doug Ford's plane. It was a government plane used by multiple ministries. I'll give you one example. Ontario Corps. If we need to send a team up north where no charter flights are, no commercial flights are, we charter a flight. We charter a flight for firefighters going up to fight wildfires. And I thought if it's a multi-ministerial plane for the province, not my personal plane that the media wants to paint it out to be, which was never the case. Yes, am I going to use it? 100%. But it was for multiple ministries that could use it.
What if that case had been made before the purchase? And further to the point, is there a double standard when it comes to the media coverage of Ontario Premier Doug Ford? We didn't question the federal government. We didn't question, well, I don't know how Quebec media handled the province of Quebec's purchase of 3 planes. But Premier Ford says, bit of a double standard here, folks. I thought that was interesting. And I admit to being a little bit chafed by it because I bristle at the mainstream media commentary that sometimes exists out there, the narrative that... Anyway, I'll just leave that aside because I am here on a mainstream media outlet, sharing thoughts with you and encouraging you to share thoughts with me. So it can be more about the jet, the double standard that the Premier feels as though exists in the media, or whatever else happens to be on your mind this Tuesday afternoon. Talk back with Kyle. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Geez, 2 days in a row, I'm starting the show off. Where's the other callers? Like, what the heck? They should be calling in first, not me.
I chose to go to you first. Do you want me to go back on hold?
No, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Mike. I was just joking. Hey, you know what? Doug Ford could have put this money somewhere else. Why not he just spend money in putting a train everywhere in Ontario? And he can get around with that money and get a better transit system for everybody instead of worrying about a private jet. I understand the private jet. Ontario is a big place. But there's lots of jets on the market. I'm sure I could have found one for him for a lot cheaper than what he paid, and that would do a lot better job than what he was looking for. But seriously, if we had a better infrastructure for Via Rail or things like that, look at how it was back in the 1970s. Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia, he went around by train and had a personalized train, and that's how he went everywhere. And, I'm sure that a train car or even a Napaway bus, which is a charter bus that has a bed in there, has a beautiful bathroom, you could lay down and enjoy the scenery and fall asleep. It's a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient than an airplane just sitting at a airport and not being used all the time, So that's my 2 cents on it. But like I said, he could have used the money somewhere else. And, here I am stuck in the 401 right now in traffic because, well, there's no other ways I can get to Toronto because they're too focused on a private jet there, Mike. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, Kyle, appreciate the call. I don't know how much more transit we can get for $30 million, in fairness. We're into the many, many, many hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for those improved transportation train connections. But I understand your point. And I also, by the way, understand that this particular plane that the province is trying to resell immediately is actually in demand right now. So we might not take as big a bath on it as some fear. Just something else to consider. Frank, you're next on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Yes, greetings from sunny Manitoba. I was driving the last 3 hours, and I caught the first part there of the show where you mentioned that there possibly could be a program, maybe similar to Alberta's, for picking up litter at the side of the road. Then you had that last segment on about having clean up every mile. In these rural areas, they have something called Adopt a Highway. And here in Manitoba as well, it looks like there's a couple of stretches where there's an Adopt a Highway. I don't know, perhaps maybe they could partner with somebody like that because I see all kinds of stuff after the snowbanks have melted. We've got urine bottles, actually windshield washer jug fluids full of. I've just seen a lot of that this week for some reason. Yeah, and it's a bit of a chafer too. But anyways, just that thought out there, Mike, and a final little gentle reminder. When you had the counselor, or quoting the counselor from, I believe it was Fairway Road in Kitchener about the CCTV cameras, there are really no bad people, but people that do jackwagon type things that will have consequences. But I think, I don't know, I'm just trying to improve the discourse, because there are a lot of problems. There are a lot of people who cause them in our communities, and they're misguided. And I think it's part of human development. If we just take a deep breath and realize that some people, such as myself, we've gone through hard times. I've been a jackwagon myself, but I want to really make and finish the struggle to become a better person in the community. So that's just my thoughts for today, and I'll talk to you when I'm in Alberta tomorrow.
All right, Frank, appreciate the call today as you're out on the road. And listen, I don't want to be so Pollyanna as to suggest there are no bad people. I will insist on the 80-20 rule. I like to call it an 85-15 rule here on the show. That's why every day around 10:20, we take some time to remind you that not everyone is a jackwagon and share a good news story. But 80% of us, probably 85, maybe even more, honestly, are good people. I don't think any of those good people are the ones that are conducting the smash and grabs at jewelry stores and terrorizing the employees there and the people that are in those malls when they happen and things like that. I don't have a lot of time for that. So just to go back to Councillor Jason Deneau, whom we quoted about those CCTV cameras that regional police will operate, and the suggestion is for Kitchener, one on Fairway Road by the mall, one in downtown Kitchener on King Street. Councillor Deneau, whose ward encompasses Fairview Park Mall, says, I think this could be great if it's a deterrent to those thieves or helps us catch those thieves, because these smash and grabs, those are absolute crimes of opportunity because something has been identified, a little weakness in the system, shall we say, that allowed for these types of robberies to be happening. And it's not something I have any time for whatsoever. So I'll just be a little bit less Pollyanna than Frank on that. There are some bad people, and they're doing those bad things, and they deserve to be punished, I do believe, to the full extent of the law for their actions. It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Every day, noon until 1, we open the phone lines, give you the chance to have your say on the issues of the day or the issue you would like to make the issue of the day. Let's get right back to the phones. Jason is with us. Good afternoon, Jason.
Hey, Mike, I thought my ears were ringing this morning.
I played some audio of you from council yesterday, yes, about CCTV cameras.
Yeah. I just quickly call in, as I said last night, I think it's a tool. It's just another tool in the toolbox for our police to, hopefully prevent and solve some of these crimes. And quite honestly, I'd say none of the smash and grabs are individuals from our community. They're coming from other areas and highly organized crime networks, preying on our most vulnerable. And so if we can do something to stop. But more importantly, as I read last night, a quote from an email I received last year, people don't feel safe. Families don't feel safe going to our malls. And we want, as a city, we want people to feel safe and inclusive in our community centers and in our parks and our events. And that should also translate into our private spaces as well, like the malls. And so, I won't lie. My first instinct, like when this was presented to us, I was like, oh my gosh, like I've watched enough sci-fi movies and TV shows, like Big Brother's going to watch. But then I put my own personal belief aside and looked at what's best for our community. And I think, this is what's best at this point in time to hopefully prevent some of these serious crimes that are happening in our community and our malls.
Appreciate you calling in, Jay. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep, good to hear from you today. And listen, as I said earlier when we played the audio from last night's meeting, and Jason Deneau, the councillor for Ward 3 in Kitchener, kind of, reiterates that point. I'm on Councillor Deneau's side here, and I am, even though I've heard many times, and I respect it, that this idea that if you don't have anything to hide, then you shouldn't worry about increased surveillance is flying right in the face of privacy and this whole idea of Big Brother, and I get that, I do, and to be perfectly blunt, I'm not certain that the mere presence of a camera is going to be deterrent enough on its own. If that camera is successfully used in following up on a crime and making the necessary arrests, I think we might be getting somewhere in that regard. And then, of course, we have to hope, and I will deliberately use the word hope, that our system appropriately punishes those who are found responsible for these smash and grabs, for example. But also, I think Jason makes a good point around public safety or the perception thereof. If the existence of these cameras makes people feel safer, makes them more comfortable going into these public spaces, that's a good thing, because we went through a whole big rash of these smash and grab type robberies. And to say it's not cool would be not putting a strong enough point on it. So I do have my own level of discomfort with the idea that Big Brother is watching even in even more places now. But I guess what I would say is, when it comes to these CCTV cameras that will be operated by regional police, at least they're telling us they're there. Like, right? How many cameras you walk past every day that you don't even know are there, or you're not even thinking about being there. Our image is captured so many different times in so many different places, and we're just going about our daily lives. Welcome to the future, I suppose. Now, that was one thing we talked about from Kitchener City Council yesterday. The other thing, of course, was the approval of an increased compensation package for the next term of council. And this always gets interesting because it comes up at the end of a term and councillors are not voting for themselves, but for the next group of councillors. But you see, this group of councillors is almost always the next group of councillors. And so, it wasn't unanimous. However, only two councillors voted against the 10% pay increase, but most are supportive of it. And I can understand the reasons why. But it is a difficult thing, isn't it? When you are technically not voting for your own raise, but you're kind of voting for your own raise. And you're doing it so you get paid appropriately for your job. I get that, but the pay comes out of our pocket, and not all of us are getting 10% increases. So it's just a way for our incomes in real dollars to be decreased. We'll talk more about that as we continue with Talkback, and we'll take your calls on the Mike Farwell Show. That's what we do, noon to 1 every day here on 570 News Radio. You see, it's not you, it's me. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. This is the way I have decided to introduce our monthly conversation with the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region, Philip Mills, who joins us to talk about what is still, I do believe, the number one issue affecting this and other communities across the country. We like to talk about housing once a month. And Phil, this is the best I got for you today. I don't know why I think it's me, not you, and whatever, but anyway, here we go. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for putting up with me and the random places that my mind sometimes takes me.
That's the best places to go. You have to let your mind wander if you want to deal with the big stuff.
Absolutely. And your mind is always on the big stuff. And recently you're thinking about not so much a shortage of units of housing, but actual homes, which is why I said it's not you, it's me. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. It's not the units shortage, it's the homes shortage. What are we talking about when we get into these conversations around units versus homes?
So I think it's a complexity that's hard to describe to everybody. Like, at a certain point, there is a very basic supply and demand element to the housing issue we're facing. More units, which is, any sort of housing product, that's a standalone single family dwelling to a rental, small apartment, like that's a unit. And that we do need more of those. But that's kind of where our imagination and understanding stops. We're just like, every announcement is we're going to build X number of, new units. There's going to be X number of doors. It's the way the government funds this sort of stuff. Everything is around units. And somewhere along the way, we just forget the fact that people live here and that people have choice, and they should have choice. And we should think about whether what we're building is what people actually need. Does this create thriving? Does this create community? Does this create healthy people? Or do we just put a unit there? Because so much of this time when we're driven by units, people are the last thing we start to think about. It's who's going to buy it? It's the investor that's going to buy this. It is the density numbers. It's everything but a person. And I think when we focus on units, we lose sight of what we're trying to really get at, which is a place for people to live.
I love what you said there about our people thriving, because Paul Bourne, who has written extensively on community in this region, talked about this some time ago, and we had him on the show to further the discussion. And that is around these big, tall buildings, density that we're creating in downtowns, which is great. We're getting units of housing, but are we creating a thriving community, even within that building itself? Because you're getting pretty limited square footage, not a lot of green space and amenities around, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that's the type of stuff we have to consider. Like, there's been a lot of movement recently. If you follow this stuff like like I do, and like a lot of folks do, you can start to see that like 1-bedroom condos are starting to show up a lot more. There's a lot more of them, and the price is coming down more and more every day. But they're not moving quick. It's not as though, hey, the prices came down, they started to move, because that has been something that was originally in a lot of spaces built for investors. And there's so many things that conspired for that to be built from investors, from the way that those construction units are funded to, the size and development of them. And now you've got a housing crisis and you've got units in the play. And so, like, how does that happen? How do you have a housing crisis and a growing segment of units that people aren't buying? Like, how does that tension make sense? And that was what I was trying to kind of really get my head around and figure out. And it came to the sense that because it's not necessarily a home for a lot of people. Like, I was doing a design exercise with some planning students at University of Waterloo a couple of weeks ago. And there's about 60 students. We were talking about our Build Now project and what should we build and what's the unit distribution and all those things. And I just asked them, like, hey, how many of you would want to buy a 1-bedroom condo? Thinking like these are, soon to graduate. That in my mind and a lot of people's mind, that's the person who would want a 1-bedroom condo. There's not necessarily, large family structures yet. They're generally pretty young folks. It's an intro into the housing market. And of the 60, like 3 said maybe. They just didn't want it. And I was like, that struck me as so surprising. But the more I talked to them, the more I heard, they're like, because that doesn't help me live. Like, that's not where I want to live. That's not the way that I want to be. That doesn't make sense. And so, in a push comes to shove, if you have no other option, sure, they would take it. But as soon as they're given a choice, as soon as there's an opportunity for something that isn't that, they don't want that product because it doesn't provide them the life that they want. It's not the home that they're looking for. And something as simple as going from a 1 to a 2-bedroom was more than enough for them to say, yeah, 2-bedroom, I'm in, because I can live there. I can have. And so I think we have to think about the people who are going to be inhabiting these spaces. What does it mean to live in what we're building? Because just more doors and more units doesn't necessarily solve our crisis, because housing is so much more than just a roof. That there's so much more to this in the way that people live. And I think we have to be really cognizant of that as we try to solve the crisis.
Isn't this, though, what happens, Phil, when we kind of let the market figure it out for themselves? Because you're getting parcels of land where you can intensify. So great, let's build up. The more units we can put in this building, the better the profit margin for the builder. You talk about investors wanting to buy those units and then maybe rent them out, et cetera, et cetera. Isn't this kind of what becomes the problem when we let the market decide?
It does, because the market isn't like free. Like, the market is determined by so many other avenues and bits and pieces. You think about one of the reasons that they're doing it the way that they do is because, like, the government funds it that way. So if you're going to get, if I build 2 1-bedroom units or 1 3-bedroom unit, which are going to cover roughly the same square footage, I get more government funding if I build 2 1-bedrooms. It's because the government is incentivizing units, not necessarily bedrooms, not necessarily people. In the same sort of way, if you're building a condo, you have to pre-sell that. Well, who has the money to buy something for 4 years from now? That's an investor, not a person. And so you start to just really see how the system has conspired to create what we have, which is stuff that's not ultimately built for people. It's built for government funding. It's built for investors. It's built for bank policies, all of these other things. Because by the time you get to the end, you're like, hey, who's going to live here? There's too many other things that have taken up and have said, we don't get to, have a say in this process. And so we just have put people so far down the list of priorities to try and get the housing built because we're so focused on units, not necessarily on the people that ultimately get to live there.
And I think one of the other challenges then that we encounter in this, Phil, is for somebody like me. I grew up in your traditional, if you will, single family detached home subdivision. I still live in one today. That is what I am accustomed to. Quite frankly, that's what I like. And so moving into a building where my immediate neighbors are right next door on the other side of the wall or right above and right below. I'm not entirely, as much as sometimes I want to be done with the house maintenance, I'm not sure that is where I want to ultimately be. And so, if we can't keep building, we've been told, the way we've built because we've sprawled too much. So how do we fix that side of the equation?
Well, I think that's the give and take, and I think everybody's trying to figure it out. How do you steward our land assets well? What is the right level of density? How do you do this? Because I think you're right. It isn't possible for everybody to have a white picket fence and a backyard the way that a lot of us grew up and the way a lot of folks, believe that they should have, or kind of that dream of, ownership and what was going to be there for them. Okay, that's not the case. But that doesn't mean now your option is an incredibly small, tiny 1-bedroom condo on the 30th story. Like there's some in-betweens between one, standalone white picket fence or 400 square feet in the sky. Like there's some, and I think that's our tension. What is the right mix of these things to say, look, I know you wanted this and that's not something that we can provide as a community right now, unless you have a lot of money to go and buy it. But our only option for you shouldn't be this tiny thing. And so how do we create new opportunities? How do we create things that people can actually afford that allow them to thrive, allow them to live well, but isn't so expensive they can't afford it or so small it doesn't meet their life? Like there is an in-between. That's that missing middle stuff. That's where those terms, like it's the middle of this, but it's so hard to build and the market is not designed to do that. So that's where folks like Habitat and Build Now and other affordable housing providers really do need to step in and make that available to the community.
And bluntly, people like me don't help these conversations an awful lot when we're like, this is what I've always had. This is what I want to have continuing, because I've visited other places in the world, Phil, primarily in Europe, where the concept of housing the likes of which we have here in North America, the likes of which we have here in Waterloo Region, is vastly different. Basically, every place you pass in a city center is a multi-story, upstairs, downstairs stacked town or something like that. Brownstone, side by each, you name it. It's far denser than it is here in North America.
It is. The thing that they do so much better too is that they often have the amenities to make that work. And this is where you can't just stick a big building in the middle of a space without having green space, without having communal access, without having places to go and to gather. You think about that European courtyard, that space where you can gather, that city plaza where you can go and, engage in broader aspects of life. That has to come with that gentle density and that missing middle type housing. But if we don't do those two things, if we just say really tall buildings and no green space, no communal access, not like that, none of that works. And that's where I think we're trying to figure out as a community, how do we do that well? And we just we haven't executed great to date. And so I think we all need to be really mindful of that we are trying to figure this out. We are trying to build something better for people, but the answer can't just be, how do we maximize the most units possible? Because you're just going to create a whole bunch of other sort of problems. Like if people don't want to live, they won't. Forcing somebody to live in a space they don't want to live is not a good solution. And if the answer is, look, they'll take it because they don't have another choice, like that isn't fixing our problem. We're just offsetting our problem to something else. And you'll see different social issues, different lacks of connection, different civic engagement. Like all of that stuff comes when you're forced to live somewhere you don't want to be because it's the best you could do. So how do we give people real options to be a real part of our community?
And I think what we're really getting at here, and we hear this same phrasing used in other conversations, is that we have to put people at the front of this. It's not just about the doors, it's the people on the other side of those doors.
Absolutely. People live in houses. So how do we make sure that people have more than a roof? We owe it to people to give them more than a roof over the head. They deserve a home, so let's give them that opportunity.
Always a great conversation. I'm glad we do this on a regular basis. Phil, as always, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Philip Mills is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region. He joins us on the third Tuesday. We're already there. Third Tuesday of every month at 11:30 to talk housing. Let's remember about the people for whom we are building the housing. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, tomorrow is Earth Day. We're in the midst of Earth Month. What is the Clean Miles Project? Oh, I think you're going to get a kick out of this one. We'll tell you about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Every day, noon until 1, we open the phone lines, give you the chance to talk back at us. We actually encourage it. You know how your parents always told you, don't you talk back to me. You talk back to us every day, noon to 1, with open phone lines to discuss the issues of the day or the issue you would like to make the issue of the day. Back to the phones. Jason, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike.
What's on your mind?
You know, I'm just thinking about this whole Doug Ford transportation ordeal, and we take a look at, you know, let's say, you know, for instance, you know, our Kitchen Rangers, they took a flight home from the Sioux. Now, let's say they come along next year and have to increase ticket prices a bit more. Obviously, somebody's got to pay for that flight home at some point, right? So, essentially, it would get passed on to us fans, right? You know, and so, you know, we don't sit here and complain that the team had to take a plane home. Obviously, it made sense with timing and all that of the game and such. But, you know, we don't make a big deal over something like that. But yet, you know, somebody in leadership like Doug Ford has to use it for business travel to get around to meetings. And he does have a fair point that, you know as well as anybody, that drive from here to the Sioux is 8-9 hours. And it sucks up a good part of the day, you know. So how are you really accounting for your time that you're wasting in that 8 or 9 hour trip by having to drive there when you can turn around and fly there within an hour? So I think the big thing here is, yes, we're kind of annoyed. You know, is it just because it's Doug Ford in a place of power spending this kind of money on transportation, or would we be more annoyed as a fan of a hockey team having to pay more for a ticket price because our team needs to fly to get to a game? You know, it's kind of a, you know, two-sided coin there, Mike.
Jason, I think it's a great point. I appreciate the call. I think we take it a little more personally because we feel as though, and it is really, the money spent on that plane is our money. But Jason's not wrong. If the costs to operate a hockey club in the Ontario Hockey League are increased because they have to fly every now and again, those costs will be passed on to consumers. I guess the difference being you have the option of opting out of those ticket prices if you don't want to pay the price. You don't have the option of opting out of your income tax, which tends to increase. But I think it is a fair point. And again, if the Premier had spent any time building the business case, I think we might be having a different conversation right now. I will remind you, though, of something that Doug Ford said yesterday that caught my attention when it comes to the so-called double standard that he feels he is subjected to.
What kind of really disturbs me is the inconsistency with the media. We have the federal government, rightfully so, and let's put the Prime Minister to the side, that they went out and bought $753 million of jets for the ministers, rightfully so, by the way. We live in a massive country. No word. When it comes to the Quebec, buying $107 million of 3 jets, which I agree. They live in a massive province. No scrutiny. But when I do it, I guess there's a double standard.
Now, much more close to home, our council in Kitchener discussed yesterday the idea of a pay increase for the next term of council. I always struggle with that because the next term almost always looks very similar to, if not identical to, the existing term. So technically you're not voting for your own raise, but you kind of are. And I don't envy anybody who has to have these discussions publicly about their money. I think people should be paid appropriately for the work that they do. And I think there are many arguments in support of paying counselors more, et cetera. The difference here is these folks get to make those arguments and then vote for it themselves. We make those arguments to our managers, and we don't always get the pay increase. And Councillor Debbie Chapman, I think, really got to the heart of this when Kitchener Council was discussing it yesterday.
So I have great difficulty with all of this. I've never worked a job, and I've worked many different jobs, where I actually sit down and decide what my pay raise is going to be. So I'm sorry, but I can't support any of this. I feel I've got a huge conflict of interest. As was mentioned, people are struggling, to pay for the gas in their cars, food on their table, rents which are off the charts. And to think that we would be giving ourselves a 10.3% wage increase, which again, for me, I've never seen a wage increase of that magnitude in any job that I've ever worked in. I'm sorry, but I can't support this. And I realize that, we get our annual increase, and I wish somebody could tell me what that is, how much, when it was, and how much we got, and maybe over the past 4 or 5 years, what that looked like, because it's not like we're not getting increases. Some people get no increases year to year. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be able to support this.
So you get your annual increase, and now you're getting the adjustment, which the annual increase will be applied to moving forward, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll take you back to when this started in Waterloo. And I mean, every municipality goes through this at this time in their term. For the next term, they have these conversations. And it's a report that gets prepared, and then councillors vote on it. But I told you when Waterloo started this, it's like a municipal ladder, right? And you knew that when Waterloo raised their salaries for councillors to very close to or above Kitchener's, you knew Kitchener was going to go above them because Kitchener's a bigger municipality with greater responsibility. So now another municipality is going to use Kitchener as a comparator, and they're going to step up the ladder over Kitchener. And then the ladder, you just keep climbing that ladder, and us poor schmucks paying the taxes are paying the increases. And that's just the way that it goes. I got to go. I'm late. I'm looking forward to tomorrow already, though. I invite you to come back tomorrow morning at 9. We'll have some more conversation, some fun here on the show. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.